There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I'm beating every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing everything on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up with a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so. Hello everyone and welcome to the 100 game tier list for the PS2, where I've beaten 100 games, or at least the first 100, out of 4,218, and today I'm going to put them all in a tier list. I'll keep each tier list separate so that each 100 games coincides with the games done on my channel in that order. You can come visit them and I'll put them on the Discord if you'd like to join the Discord, and I'll make sure that anyone can go look at them and even do the tier list themselves, however you want to do it. So here are the rules. The first rule is I'm doing this live, so I won't be talking to chat, but chat will be there, and at the very end we'll talk. The video won't have that though, so if you'd like to see that, you can go to my live version of this and watch that. That's all up to you. Number 2, the tier list tiers work like this. The S tier is going to be a 10 out of 10 game perfect. A is 9, B is 8, C is 7, D is 5 and 6, E is 3 and 4, and F is 1 and 2. So that's how the tier list is going to go. All right, we have 100 games on this tier list, and we're going to start right away with number 1, and that game is going to be Champions of Norrath, the very first game. Now this is a top-down ARPG, isometric game, kind of like Diablo. However, Diablo was out for about a year or two before this game came out, so they had a lot to look at if they wanted some recommendations for how to make a game like this. They didn't really follow that. This game is much more of a hack and slash game, a very linear story experience. You get to the end, you can play under the difficulty. There are 5 character classes, each with their own set of skills, and you can pick up loot, of course. This is an ARPG. The problem is that it does not have a wealth of loot. There are very few things you are chasing in that game. And as an ARPG, a game where you're picking up a lot of loot, that's kind of important. Sadly, that means that the game's gonna score lower, because if I had something to go after, it'd be more fun. I mean, I enjoy games like this. This is my favorite type of game, ARPGs. Now, there is one thing, is that you can play this with 4 players on the console. You used to be able to play it online, but that has since been gone. So you can play this with up to 4 people, couch co-op, and it works great. So I'm actually going to put this game in the B tier, sadly. Number 2, Champions Return to Arms. This is number 2 in the Champions of Norrath series, and sadly this one took a bit of a step back, mostly because of the speed at which it came out. It came out way too early. They reused a lot of assets, a lot of voices, and it was just too samey. However, the changes that they made to this game just weren't good. See, the other game was very linear, but you went to different places in Norrath and learned things and learned why you were there. There was a story. This one, the story is simply to kill or resurrect the bad guy from the first game, and you just go everywhere from a base and you pick your mission. That's it. There's nothing tying all of this together except for the fact that you're finding the shards to resurrect him or destroy him. That's it. So the story really took a back seat, and that kind of sucks, because the story was fun. It was a little silly in the first one, but come on, man. So the good thing is they added 2 more classes. Not only did they add 2 more classes, but they have 1 or 2 new abilities for all of the old classes. And you can transport your character from the first game to this game and continue playing. That is actually pretty good. But it's still just too much the same. And because they didn't add any new items to chase, it's not that great. So most of the time you're finding the same stuff and never anything that new. So sadly, this game is going to have to get a C. Grand Theft Auto 3, game number 3. This game was super fun, and I remember playing this when I was younger. The problem with this game that I have so far is that the important places are not marked on a map for you. And an area so large that needs you to find things, especially quickly, like spray shops to spray your car or weapon shops to help you get some weapons. A lot of the time you're going to find yourself roaming around until you find those locations and then hopefully being able to use them. Especially the weapons. In between missions, there's nothing to do. Now, I do like not having my handheld and having it show you where everything is, but it's only a couple places in the game that would have been really helpful to mark in some kind of way on your minimap. That way you could find them, especially because you visit them so often. Now, that's not terrible, but it is kind of weird that they have things like that, and the only mission things that are marked, of course, are the missions that you're on. So that's fine. The shooting in this game is the weakest of the 3D series. This is the first one, so obviously they're learning. I mean, it's called Grand Theft Auto. It's much more about being in a car than getting out and shooting your gun. And it's very obvious because the last mission is so incredibly difficult, unless you've collected all the secret packages to get all the weapons available to you, that you don't want to be getting out. You want to stay in your car and run people over or shoot them out your window. Easiest. Or find a rocket launcher or grenades, whatever. So, GTA 3 does have some issues. The game itself was really fun. I really wish the shooting was better because the driving's okay, but this game is actually going to get a B. I'm sure some people will be upset about that. Game number 4, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. This is what I assume is the next step in the beat 'em up series. It's a hack and slash, but it feels like a beat 'em up where you go through a level and you beat stuff up and you pick some items up and you use them. And it's really fun, especially for a licensed game. The big problem with this one is that if you've never heard of Lord of the Rings or know only a little bit about it, you are going to have a lot of issues because the story is so broken up that you don't know what's going on after the very first mission. It doesn't flow well. So you don't want to play this if you don't know anything about the movie at all, or if you've only seen it once in passing. You need to know about it. As for the combat, it is a lot of fun. You do have 10 levels to get, although every character from the beginning of the game to the end will get to level 10 just by going through once and doing a mediocre job at fighting. You'll get the experience to level up. And as you unlock abilities as you level up, you'll be stronger and stronger. However, it is kind of ruined by the fact that some of the abilities, 3 of them is to be specific, can instantly kill any type of enemy that it associates with. So the Uruk-hai and the orcs. You just specifically target them by pressing this button sequence and you will auto kill them in a cool little cinematic. And while that's really cool, it really is cool, it takes away any punishment. You just go up and start doing that combo over and over and clear everyone out. So it's cheapened a little bit by that. But if you don't have those abilities, it's still pretty fun. Sadly, it just isn't as strong as I want it to be. It's a really good game and it would be fun as a remaster. But I'm gonna say it's gonna get a C. I think it could have done a lot better with the story, and I think just the 3 characters that you have aren't enough to make it interesting. They're too close together to me. I think the game after this, that one is going to be a little better. Next game, number 5, is Killzone. Killzone is fun, but as an FPS game, you want some sort of speed, because if you're going to go for a slow route, they just didn't know what. It doesn't seem like they know what they were doing. Things take too long to happen. Bloom for shooting sucks. I hate Bloom, and you just fire your weapon wildly into people, and it doesn't feel great all the time, and there just isn't a lot going on in battles. It's all very slow, like I said. The story is okay. I think the story, if you follow along with it, is pretty decent. You're trying to stop these people, Helghast, from destroying the planet, and then you find some people to go help you, one of them being half Helgen, half human, and it's a whole thing, of course, although he then proves himself, and all that's well and done, but the shooting is the main point of the game. That's where you're going to have the most fun, and it just isn't as fun as I would like it to be. Now, the multiplayer is fun because you can play it by yourself, and you can play it online still today, apparently. I have not yet played it online, but I would like to. I'd like to do a community play date where we play this game. So this game is sadly going to get a D. I wish it was just a little bit better. I honestly have played a lot of FPS games. All right, game number 6, Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts was a game that I played 100% through 6 or 7 times. And, this was when I was younger. I really liked this game. Now, as an adult and playing it now, I find it to be a fun experience still. But there's just something missing about it. And maybe it's complexity in battle. Because I know the later ones do have a little bit more complex fights. But this one feels much more like just kind of smack at things and you can kill them. Use magic because it's super powerful. That's about it. And while it's fun, I like doing the battles and stuff and going back through it, seeing the story, which the story is interesting, at least for the first one. It didn't feel as fun as I remembered it. Maybe I had killed my want to play it more since I was younger and played it so many hours. But playing it now, it felt a little bit more like a chore sometimes because the fights were just, I've already done these fights 15 times. It's just kind of smack some guys from behind, wait till they turn around, use magic on this guy to stun him. It's not too hard of a game. The story is the least convoluted in the series as far as I believe. The least convoluted. So it is fun because you're kind of starting out with this. You've got a lot to learn, but it's not so much that it takes over the whole game, which I think after 2, it's too much. So Kingdom Hearts is going to get a B for me. It's still a fun game. I still had a pretty good time, but... Growlanser 2 is game number 7, and this one was a very big surprise. This is a grid-based RPG, tactical RPG, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics, Ogre Battle, Tactics Ogre for the PlayStation, all those types of games, except that instead of just a grid system, it is actually based on distance when you're fighting. So instead of 2 or 3 grid spaces away, it is a distance, and everything happens at once. So you're not taking turns and moving a character and having them attack. You're setting everyone's attacks and magic attacks up all at once, and as things progress, things will happen, and then you can change things on the fly. And it was way more fun than I thought. You see, this game also has a lot of equipment to equip, but you also have the ring system, where rings come with different powers activated on them, and you can use gems to activate them, and you can get bonuses and penalties for using too high of a level gem or the right level gem, and you can make your characters really powerful by searching around a lot to find these gems. And it's totally worth it to do so, because not only do you find a lot hidden around the game, but the dialogue in the game is so good. They actually did a good job. I have a lot of problems accepting good, or just dialogue in general as being good in video games, because they aren't written necessarily by people who have studied this stuff. And that's not to say anything bad. I went to school for English and creative writing, so I might be a little bit more harsh than most, but this game really does have good dialogue and good story, and the characters do things. And not only that, but on top of the good story, you make your own choices, and people will see different choices in their games than they did on my game, which if you see the video, you can see some of the choices I made. You get to see some things by choosing if your character goes forward or stays back because they're sick, and it completely changed some of the characters in my game, on top of there being multiple endings. And I actually chose a bad ending because it was one of the quickest endings to get. So I went for a bad ending. I mean, it was a shit ending, but I really liked it. This game was really good. I don't really see a lot holding it back, but and as much as I enjoyed it, it wasn't a perfect game for me. I think there could be more done. I just don't know what off the top of my head, but this game definitely is going for an A. Guitar Hero 3, of course, the Guitar Hero games, all very fun, but that's it. You play guitar, and if you like playing guitar, then it's a good game. I mean, all the games have really good songs. Some of them are a little bit worse than others because they are later on, but Guitar Hero 3 for me was the peak of Guitar Hero when it first came out. Once I got number 3, the amount of songs, the amount of good songs, the amount of interesting side songs, and then if you got it on the newer consoles, which obviously this is the PS2, if you got on the 360 or the PS3, you could download new songs, and I played so many. I must have spent $50-$60 back in college buying songs just to play on Guitar Hero 3. And I do like that they have some new bosses. You can fight like good guitar players, including the devil at the very end, to beat him, and that's kind of like your story, which is really cool. I do like it. It is a lot of fun, but you know, it can very easily wear out its welcome because it's just playing buttons on a controller. And after a while, I may have just killed my want to do it more, but Guitar Hero 3 is getting a B for me. I think it would be a high B, although I'm not ordering these in any specific order, but I think it'd be a more of a high B because it was really fun, but, you know, after a while. All right, Conflict Vietnam, and this game is an interesting little third-person squad-based game. I think I didn't say the number of this game. It's number 9. This game has you controlling a set of 4 people. 3 are controlled by AI when you switch to another opponent, and when you switch to another teammate, and they all have their own guns and their own ammo, which means you must switch back and forth between them and pick up the ammo yourself, as the computer players don't do that, which is a little silly, but that's how it works. You go around and you try and be a bit tactical about your take on each map. You get 2 saves per map. You can save your game twice. If you get through the map, that's good. But if not, you need to save at certain spots, and you only have 2 so that you can make it through, because some of the missions have a lot of one-hit kill scenarios, traps, enemy grenades are deadly, enemy rocket launchers are deadly, there's mortars in some levels. It's a bit difficult because your opponents can die, or your allies can die so quickly. Now, you can heal them, and they can heal you, but good luck. Just try not to die. The shooting was fun. The auto aim, the aim assist is extremely aggressive. Like, I can't believe how aggressive it is sometimes. And then other times it just wildly fires off into nothing. I have no clue what's going on with it. But Conflict Vietnam's story is okay-ish. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to the story as much. It just wasn't that interesting. I mean, it's war, so you're going through war stuff. Some of it was kind of ridiculous. So Conflict Vietnam for me gets a C because it was still somewhat fun. I did enjoy some of the moments in the game. Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 is a very interesting horror game, one that a lot of people like a lot and a few people don't like at all for various reasons. It is much more about the story and the ambiance and even the story and the environment than it is the gameplay. And for me, it does ruin it for me a bit. I'm not the type of person who likes get a key, go here, get a key, go here all the time. It all depends on how the gameplay around it is based. And honestly, in this game, you can just run past everyone all the time. Now, the story is very interesting and it does a great job. And because most of the game has story all over, it's really interesting to see. So I can put aside the gather the key to go to this door, gather this item to go here, over and over and over running past some enemies, because it was interesting. There was a lot of cool things to see and find. And at the end of the game, you can get a satisfying ending or an unsatisfying one, and then you have to push yourself to like, okay, I gotta find this good ending because I don't like this one. This one sucks, which is really cool. Otherwise, it's not a complex game. You run around and you hit things with melee weapons or shoot them with the few guns you have, and you find stuff and you open doors and you go a little further. This game for me gets an A. All right, next game, Twisted Metal Black. This game is a car war arena thing where you fight a bunch of different, it's like a destruction derby. You go around an arena and you fight other cars, and everyone has their own thing. So you have everyone's favorite Sweet Tooth, which is the titular character of the game. Sweet Tooth drives an ice cream truck. He is a clown. His head's on fire, which is part of his story. And he has a certain special he can use that everyone gets throughout the stages. So as you play through the stage, it will generate your special over and over. So you have this like good, strong attack that you don't have to pick up off the ground. Now, when you're driving on the arena, this means that you pick up other weapons off the ground. Regular missiles, homing missiles, power missiles, satellites, bombs, barrels, ricochets, and you can input a sequence of button presses, combo presses, up, down, up, left, right, left, that will do different things, and everyone has them, and you have a little energy bar on the screen. So you can shoot napalm, you can shoot freeze blast that will freeze a player on the spot, you can shoot your weapons backwards. It's really cool, and it's worth learning a few of them, including the freeze, because the freeze will help you stop people in their tracks. I mean, AI players don't break out of the freeze very quickly. There are a bunch of different cars, all with different specials and different personalities, different little stories that you go through when you play a certain set of stages, and if you beat all of them, you get to the end with that character. Kind of like a fighting game. You pick a character and you go through, see their little story, and then it's the end. It's a fun game, and you can play it online. There's a version you can play online. And you can play this with a multi-tap. In fact, my family and I did lots and lots. We played this with a multi-tap on PS2 all the time. We very much enjoyed it. However, I do find that the game is a little lacking during the fights. Sometimes I just run out of things to use too often, and I want there to be more craziness all around me. Let things be crazy. I mean, this is a car destruction game with a lot of open space above you because the levels need to be big enough, but like make some interesting things happening. There are some building destruction things, but the weapons, there need to be bigger weapons, more fun. I don't know. So this game for me gets a C. I really like these games, but all right, our next game, and I'm so sorry everyone, Shadow of the Colossus. This will be the controversial tier list pick. I did not find myself enjoying this game as much. The story which is all about the ambience, the environment, what's going on, looking at the colossi, your character, the things said. It's all very minute and really good. I like that part. That's great. For me, though, there is too much either doing nothing, waiting, or doing nothing while holding one button. And it's just too much. You come back with, you after you kill a Colossus, and it says, okay, go find the next one. So you ride your horse for a little while, and you ride your horse, and you ride your horse, and you follow the sunlight. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. But you do this 17 times. And then you get to the Colossi, and sometimes you have to wait for it to come out. You have to wait for it to do something, see what you need to do. Okay, so that's fine, right? Waiting. But then when you start climbing him, it's just climb, 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 climb. Okay, where do I go next? Okay, climb, climb. Oh, he's shaking. Hold circle. Hold circle. Hold circle. And you do that quite often. It's just too much of nothing sometimes. And I know that might be something that people will say, oh, that's a Gen Z thing where no one has the attention span. It's not necessarily the attention span. It's the frequent stops and waiting. It's just when I'm playing a game, I want to stop when I want to stop to do something, to look at something, but I would like to be able to control the action enough where if I'm ready, I press the buttons and go. It doesn't have to be 100% of the time, but this game feels like it's half waiting and half gameplay. And for me, that's just it's not interesting enough. There's nothing going on. So sadly, this game is going to get a C. I still enjoyed it. Don't think a C is bad. I still enjoyed it. But for me, I wish there was a lot more going on. And yeah, so sorry. Go ahead. All right. Next game is, we'll move on before everyone screams at me, Soldier of Fortune Gold Edition. Now, this is an FPS game that started out on the PC and comes to the PS2 with mouse and keyboard support. If you have an M100 or an M120 mouse and keyboard, those will work with the PS2, and it works pretty well with this. Now, there are some weird things that happen with the mouse and keyboard for all games that will do this in the future, so you can look online to see what people say, but most often there will be issues unless you have your mouse sensitivity up almost as high as it will go. However, it still works really well. Like, it's totally worth using the mouse and keyboard over controller if you want some more control, and I really enjoyed it. The problem is, Soldier of Fortune is an okay game, but I felt like I was picking up the same couple guns every single time I ran out of all my guns for whatever mission. And I didn't really have a lot to do. It was like, shoot this guy in the head. Okay, now shoot this guy in the head. Okay, now walk around here. Now shoot this guy in the head. That was it. It was very much like that. And it didn't have the environmental storytelling that would make it interesting to walk around. A game that I'll play later with mouse and keyboard will have that environmental storytelling, and it will be much more interesting because of it. Plus, the variety of enemies in that game. This one, there just isn't enough. It is a fun FPS game. It has some multiplayer. I'm not even sure you can play that stuff anymore. But if you're going to play with mouse and keyboard, it's one of the games to play. Sadly, this game is going to get a D for me. It's fun, but it just wasn't fun enough to warrant it being ported if that's all it's going to do. All right. Next game, Hot Shots Golf 3. Hot Shots Golf has always been a series I've loved since the PlayStation 1, since the first one came out. They are great games, especially if you don't care for golf that much, but you want to try and play with someone else, you're playing multiplayer. This is more of a fun game because it's a little bit more wacky. It has cartoonish characters with weird sayings. I mean, all of them seem to, and they're funny, and it just looks appealing and is much more arcadey. And there's even fun things to do in it, like perfect shots, hitting your golf ball perfectly and getting cool perfect shots. It's a fun game overall. There's a big tournament mode. You can unlock characters. You can fight challenge characters. It's a difficult game once you get further in. And as fun as this one is, I'm sad to say that this one lacks the super special characters like number 4 does. They have Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, and they don't have those in this one. Number 2 had not Kratos. They had Sweet Tooth and they had Gex because it was on the PlayStation 1. So it's weird that they came to number 3 with no one to work with. But hey, that's just how it works. So as a golf game, as a fun game, this game gets a B for me. Next is going to be Monster Hunter, and Monster Hunter is a very interesting game to have so early on because there is a lot of rough around the edges things. Sadly, it has a lot of hitbox problems. The grind is terrible. I mean, so large. It took me hours just to farm a low set of armor from a Yin Cuckoo, and that's kind of annoying, like doing the same thing over and over and over. In this game, it's so utterly slow. So even a little bit of tension eased off of the player would have been helpful, but that's not here. Luckily, it's not nearly as long as any of the other Monster Hunter games, so you can beat this one a little bit quicker. So, Monster Hunter is a game where you prepare yourself and go out and hunt a monster specifically. There are lots of things you can do: gathering, searching for things, hunting, crafting things together, getting your character more powerful. So it's not just about the hunting monsters, it's all about the other stuff too, taking care of yourself, because there's so many fucking things to have in this game. Monster Hunter is still fun though, and the entire time I still enjoyed the fact that I was playing Monster Hunter. It's just weird playing it on such an early system, like an early version of the game. So this game gets a B for me. Alright, next is Syphon Filter. Syphon Filter, the Omega Strain. This game is more of an online game than anything. Now, you can play this single player, and that's what I did, and it's fine, but if you are going to play this game, you should play it online, and luckily for you or everyone else, you can go play it online on servers today. In fact, someone who was commenting on the video talked about the servers. There was also someone who was angry about what I said about the game and commented on the servers. But the first person was like, thank you so much for commenting. The servers are great. Go play this game if you want. It's a perfect game to play with friends. It is kind of fun. But for me, a single player experience, just going through by myself, a little bit confusing, and I just couldn't do all of the things until I learned them well enough, all of the objectives in each map. You can fail objectives. In fact, there was one map where I failed every single objective and beat the thing. You can unlock another mission because you beat it with some of the objectives completed, but it wasn't necessary to see credits. It was necessary to see a different ending because you have a chance of not stopping the Omega Strain or stopping the Omega Strain. So that's the whole idea, is that you do well enough to stop it. My problem is that I feel in single player you need to do too much memorization to complete it for a casual player. Someone who likes the game, please, by all means, that would be something I would do. But as a casual player playing through once, maybe twice, it's not something I'm going to be able to do without a guide. And I don't want to use a guide for these games as much as I possibly can. So, Syphon Filter is fun. It's fun shooting. It's a little stiff for me. I don't like the controls. Sadly, this is going to make it a D tier game for me. Okay, so I'm going to do both Dora games together just because they're the same game with a slightly different story. One is called the Crystal Kingdom and the other is the Snow Princess, and you're pretty much just saving the Snow Princess, or you are the Snow Princess, and then you're saving the Crystal Kingdom. That's it. So really for this game, it's a kid's game, and the whole idea is that you are scrolling left to right across the screen. You collect only one item at the beginning of each stage so that the child can then beat the stage without collecting a single other collectible. You can beat the entire level without collecting anything else because you collected that one thing at the beginning, and it's easy. You just walk into it. Sadly, that means that the game is it doesn't punish you, so there's no reason to really play past a couple minutes to say I played it, although I did play for 2 hours on each one to get to the end. Now, kids will like this game, so I'm going to save it from the F tier, but it is getting an E because I didn't have any fun, but kids might enjoy it. I think that's where I'm going to put it at, so we're going to go there. Okay, Guitar Hero. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to read chat. Guitar Hero 1, the one that started it all. You get the controller, you get to play cool songs. The big problem with this one is that, of course, pretty much all of the songs on this are covers. They don't have the original licensing for the songs, so they had to change them. And the thing with Guitar Hero is that they have to play them so that they can tie the sound files separately, the guitar separately, the voice separately, the drums separately. So when you mess up on the guitar, it can make a weird sound and cut the guitar out properly. So in the future, when they're able to get those licenses and have people actually come play the song or get a master track with all of those changes, then they can't do it here. So they have to cover it so that they can do that, because they only have limited licensing, which means that the songs are really off-sounding sometimes. And sadly, that's just the whole thing. Now, the hitboxes, the notes, when you calibrate this game to your TV screen, it still has a lot of issues recognizing hammer-ons and pull-offs, which were luckily fixed in number 2. But this one is really, really rough. And as fun as it is, it's very rough. So I'm still giving it a C because it was fun, the songs are fun, and it's just Guitar Hero, man, come on. Alright, Guitar Hero 2 came right after it with a lot of fixes, with a lot more songs, more licensed songs, and more stuff to buy. So, it is a lot more fun, the songs are more fun, but that's about it. You can buy some cool outfits, you can do new venues, you got new characters, and some of the songs are their original song, and there's a lot more good songs too. But, you know, that's about it. So I am going to say, though, that this one is more fun than number 1, sadly. Sorry, never started number 1. Next game is Black. Black is an FPS game that is all about the shooting and the sound design and the environmental destruction. I don't even know anything about the story, really. I think that my character was being used in secret missions because you are being grilled in between missions by someone about what happened. So it must have been something important. The problem is that it just wasn't there for me, and if that's the case, I mean, FPS games sometimes do that. If they don't have a good story, it's just easy to kind of... So, this game, though, the gunplay was pretty good. Now, the problem is that you have no control over your sensitivity in the game, and with no mouse and keyboard support, aiming with a controller on one sensitivity is shitty. I hate it. I don't like that they don't have this in the game, but the environmental destruction, shooting people, and the impact it has, the sound, the weapons, all really good. A lot of fun. So for this one is going to score higher than most of the other ones. It is going to get a B. I wish there was a little bit more to it, though. That's the thing for me. I wish there was a lot more options to pick. I had a lot of problems aiming without the sensitivity, and the story was shite. But hey, B is good for an FPS, honestly, on the PS2. There's not going to be many more above this. Like, I'm just letting you know. All right. Star Wars Battlefront, the first one. That's right, it was on PS2, also on PC. It's where I played it originally, but on PS2 this game still holds up pretty well. You play the Star Wars universe in 2 different ways. You play a planetary kind of control game where you are the good side or the bad side, the Empire or the Rebels, and you take over different planets. You get bonuses for taking over planets and systems, and you choose which place to fight. And it's really cool. You fight an AI and you go through taking over planets, or you follow the stories from the movies. And it's pretty cool. I like that you can do that, although I feel like that's stretching it a bit because a lot of these are just like very quick battles, or you just hear about them, and that's fine. I don't mind because it's still a lot of fun. This plays exactly like Battlefield. It has tickets at the, well, not exactly, but it has tickets at the top. As you take over areas, you lose tickets, and as you are killed, you lose tickets. You obviously need to have tickets left over to win. So if you deplete all their tickets, you win the game. It was very simple, very easy on pretty much anything other than the hardest difficulty, and that's the only problem, is that you just have a lot of control over what's going on, and picking up a vehicle and blasting people is very easy. You can roam the battlefield killing people, and your AI opponents will, your AI allies will just go do the things for you, and you can keep your tickets up and destroy theirs very quickly. So you'd have to play on a higher difficulty to get a little bit more of a challenge out of the game. However, it's a really fun game. The only downside is you can't play as a hero, and that sucks. But hey, number 2 soon, so this gets a B. This gets a B for me. Sonic Mega Collection Plus. This one has a lot of Sonic games and a couple other games that are kind of fun freebies on the side. This one has Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and a host of other, like, say, Game Gear games and extra games, Sonic Spinball. Now, this first time I played through it, I only played a few of the games. I played half of the games plus 1, and then I finished the rest of the Sonic games later on. I definitely had my childhood ruined because I played this when I was younger a lot. I played Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles all the time, man. I love those games. However, as I played through these games again, I realized how kind of crappy some of these games are. Now, Sonic 1, 2, and 3 were all very good. Sonic and Knuckles was okay. Apparently playing as Knuckles is a little bit harder, so I played as Knuckles, and it was just not as fun. And the rest of them were fairly bogus, man. The Sega Game Gear ones were very bad. There were a couple that were okay. I mean, one of them was Sonic Labyrinth, and you literally cannot run. Sonic, the character who's the fastest thing alive, can't run. He can spin dash a little bit, like a pinball. It's fucking stupid. And then there's Sonic Spinball. I hate that game. I hate that game. It's so unfun. And you'll see that in the video soon when I put that one up. So that's Sonic Mega Collection Plus, though, does contain a lot of games, and you can pick and choose what you play and how you play them. You can even play 2-player, which is great. So I won't dock it too many points for the fact that some games I didn't like. I mean, these games aren't actually on the PS2, so this is just a nice collection to play. And because they give you this option so many years later, I'm going to give it a B, because it's cool you can play any of them. I didn't have to play all of them, but for the channel I did, and I definitely am not happy. It would have gone an A if I hadn't played all of them. So, all right. Gauntlet, The Seven Sorrows. A very weird third-person hack-and-slash game, very short, like 3 hours, and I didn't understand the story. It's a game that I will come back and play to redeem the video, so be watching out for that. But overall, it was such a dull game. It was just a dull game. If you've played any of the Gauntlet games before, you go around and destroy monsters and monster nests. You don't have any equipment you pick up. You pick up some items that help you, almost like an arcade game, because they were arcade games before. But this one is just, I mean, it's so bare bones. There's like nothing to do, man, and you just use the same couple moves over and over. It's just not fun. So I'm going to say for Gauntlet, it was an easy E for me. Easy E. I'd say that at least I had some fun, so that's cool. All right, next game, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, a very good step forward for Grand Theft Auto as a series. I'm very glad that they took what they learned from number 3 and were able to apply it to Vice City, because Vice City turned out to be even more fun. Now, it still doesn't have the best shooting mechanics, but the driving is more fun. The story is even more fun. Your character now has a voice, a personality, and you do stuff, and you can buy properties, and there's just a lot to see. And it's very, very fun. Now, I still wouldn't say it is a perfect game. There are a lot of things that could be fixed about it, like the shooting, because in this game you finally get to start killing multiple enemies in a mission. In Grand Theft Auto 3, there were very few times you killed a lot of enemies close up. So a lot of this is going to be like half of it's going to be car, half of it's going to be getting out and shooting people, and the shooting is better. So this game is going to get an easy A for me. It was very fun, but there's still a little bit holding it back. All right, this is Warhammer Fire Warrior, and this is another FPS game. This one, however, has you playing in the Warhammer universe. Okay, this is Warhammer 40k. The most boring character. Now, the Tau, who is the race of character you're playing, do have some really cool things about them. The problem is that they highlight none of them in the game, and they make it seem like you just have nothing, like you are an extreme underdog. And as far as I understand, their weapons technology is very good, but I don't know much else about it, because when I played this game, it's not. I used like some shit weapons, man. They're so boring. And the story, it's okay, but I don't know any of the characters or any of the settings, so I think there's a little bit of disconnect because of that. There are a couple characters or things that are referenced that I don't know, and it's weird they made you play as such a boring shit character. So Fire Warrior is getting an E, man. It's saved from an F simply because it was still a mostly working FPS game, but it could have done a lot better. Next game is going to be Toy Pals. Toy Pals is a kids game about numbers, and you can also use a special dance pad that has all the symbols from the game on the dance pad, or you can use an actual dance pad. Now, I want to have my son do it, but eventually we'll try that because there's other games that use this special pad, so that will be really fun for kids. However, when I played it, I absolutely accepted that I'm not going to enjoy it very much, but I found it to be kind of shitty. Like, the frames per second during some of the mini games are crap because of the animations. The animations are so bad, so dumb. The voices are hilarious. The bunny who says 9, if you haven't watched the video, you can go listen to how he says it. He says it so terrible. And it's just, there's a mini game that doesn't make any sense. It's about growing flowers, and it doesn't make any sense. I have no clue how it has anything to do with numbers. So this game, for me, is getting an E, simply because the dance pad sounds fun for kids, but yeah, it's a shite game otherwise. Next game is going to be Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was the game that helped Devil May Cry split off from it and even changed how Resident Evil... Just think about this. Resident Evil 4 was going to be Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry came off of what they were trying to do for Resident Evil 4, and they were like, no. Make that its own game, Devil May Cry. We'll make Resident Evil 4 something different. And then went on to completely change how Resident Evil works and how everyone sees Resident Evil and some games in general. Like, such a big game. Can you believe that 2 awesome games came out of that? They're just like, nah, let's split them. Thank God they did that, because Resident Evil 4 was a really fun game. I think there are some things about it that are, kind of weird. Like, I don't like that they got rid of the zombie-ish things. Like, there's too many people with weapons and big monsters now. It's just too much. And I wish it went back to its roots. I mean, the regenerator guy at the end of the game, that I can see. He's still mostly human-ish, but a lot of the other things are just too grotesque and monster-like, and it's too often, and the powers people were getting, like Krauser having stuff, and then Wesker, it's just, I don't know, man. I've never been that big of a fan of it. So the gameplay, top-notch. The shop-buying stuff, upgrading your weapons, finding things all around, having your inventory management, very fun. But there are some things that hold it back. The story is fun. But this game definitely gets an A. Just not an S. All right, GrimGrimoire is an interesting side 2D StarCraft type game where you have several different types of magical summoning spheres that you can summon certain magical enemies and items from to fight the enemy. And like I said, it's like StarCraft, so they'll have a base, you destroy all the enemies or their base, and you win. And it's told in the format of this kind of like anime school for magicians or whatever, for people learning magic. And the school is very volatile. It doesn't make any sense. There's like a bunch of crazy crap happening. So you play as this girl who's just starting school, and 5 days in, everything goes haywire and everybody dies. But as you die, you resurrect 5 days earlier, and you have to replay over and over. And as you get better at doing things you've learned in the school and just combat in general, you'll start to get so good that you can then get ahead of the bad guys in those 5 days and eventually figure out why you're stuck in a time loop and how this is even happening. And it's interesting. The story is interesting, I guess. The dialogue is pretty, some of the characters are just, like sexual appeal for sexual appeal's sake, and it's not interesting. And one of the characters is kind of a perv. I really don't understand how that's endearing in any way. Like, why make a character like that unless it's going to be, I don't know. It didn't work in this game. And the combat, the actual, like, meat of the game where you're playing StarCraft, it's okay. The problem is that you start the game having the forest element, where the forest element you can summon fairies. And the fairies can fly. They don't get caught up in the geometry of the level, because this is a 2D plane where you must climb stairs if you are a walking unit. So as a flying unit who can be upgraded and grouped into small groups, I just sent them everywhere in big groups, just like group of 8, group of 8, group of 8, group of 8, and would just destroy everything. And if they died, who cared? I was summoning more because they're like a starter unit, and I beat the game. I mean, I played on normal, I just don't understand. And then there's some units that are so overpowered. If you summon them, it's over, unless you have the exact counter. So I don't know. This game is interesting. It really could have done better, but I'm still giving it a C because it was kind of fun to play. Antz, Extreme Racing. Wonderfully, wonderfully crappy 18 minutes of my life. Seriously, 18 minutes to get to the very end of the game. I saw credits, man. I saw credits. This game has one racer, and they are all just reskinned. So you can play as other characters, however, from the movie Antz. However, I don't see any stats. I don't see any differences. So you're unlocking them for what? For fun? I have no clue. But the races that are the meat of the game, obviously it's a racing game, and they have 5 different types of races, and I think a total of 8 races. That's it. So you have 5 races stretched over a total of 8, or different types of races. So that means the couple races that they try and do interesting things with are kind of crappy. Like, they just don't work well. Like ones where you just go straight down a hill and you're like navigating stuff. It's kind of unfun. And otherwise you play like Mario Kart style racing tracks. That's it. And then some of them you don't even ride a car or a bug or a vehicle of any sort. You run. You just run. You just run forward. And so you're controlling your guy running and you skid around. I'm like, there's power-ups to pick up and use, but who gives a crap? The Antz gets an F. F Antz. Legaia 2 is the sequel to Legend of Legaia. The problem is that the game's stories and characters have nothing to do with the first game, which is really, really weird. The first game was all about a mist that was unleashed upon the world that was turning people into monsters called Saru, and you found a Ra Saru, who is the opposite of Saru and would help you pretty much pacify those enemies and help people return to being human, because humans were the ones turned into Saru. This game is about someone trying to take over the world because he could. I mean, that's pretty much all RPGs. I kind of like the other one where the monsters were trying to like win. But this one's fine. It still has one of the most unique RPG combat systems I've ever played, and it really is fun. Instead of hitting X for attack and then watching your guy attack, you input a series of buttons on the D-pad, up, left, down, and right. And however you enter them, your character punches or kicks. Up and down are high and low attacks. Right and left are your fists, and you punch just mid-range. That some enemies will get hurt, or they won't be able to be hit by low attacks because they're flying, or high attacks because they're low on the ground. And you can also make combos out of these picks, like these punches and kicks. You have to learn them, and some of them are not known to you. You just press buttons until maybe you hope you find one. But the combos are awesome because it's not just about putting together combos, but stringing combos together. Because the way the game works is you have combos that are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves long. And as you level up, you get more and more slots to fill in combat. Upwards of 15 times you press up, down, left, or right. And each time you do that, you can put combos in. So you put a combo of 3 in, and if the combo of 3 ends with the beginning of a second combo, you can then string it and just continuously string it. As long as you have one that ends and begins with the same one, you can string them and do multiples of them. There are even very special hidden ones like the Miracle. The Miracle combos or the Miracle arts are when you are half health, half everything, and you input this as like a last-ditch effort, but it's extremely powerful, and I don't even know how you get them like normally. So it's a very cool, interesting RPG system. The story itself, it's okay. It's a very, bland RPG game. There's 3 stones. He steals the 3 stones. You gotta go get the stones. You get the stones, but you realize he's already gonna destroy the world. Use the stones to kill him. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's every game. So maybe it's just me. But the combat is super fun. The crafting is also kind of fun too. And there's even some not post-game, but stuff you can do right before the game ends, like a 100 series of continuing fights, and if you beat it, you get all this super special stuff. So Legaia 2 is actually going to get a B. I do wish there was a little more to it, but honestly, for an RPG with such a unique battle system, I'm glad it did what it did. All right, next is Dark Alliance, and this is the Baldurs Gate series. Dark Alliance is another top-down isometric ARPG, which is the same engine that Champions of Norrath uses. Both really fun games. The problems are the same though. Now, the story is fine. The story is actually a little bit more interesting how they set it up, because it's not necessarily about just the world ending, but I mean, it's literally about a tower that you're going to stop, because the tower is going to take over the world. People who are running it, I'm not sure. I forget exactly what you're doing for the tower, but the gameplay itself is the exact same as Champions of Norrath, and you have the same item pickups. There is nothing unique, save for the very last enemy you fight before the last boss gives you the Onyx Sword. Everything else, there's no super special magic stuff you're waiting for. You're like, oh, I got a sword that's an upgrade. All right, that's it. That's all you look for. You just look for a little bit higher numbers. So I think for Dark Alliance, because it's so similar, I won't say any more, but this game is going to get a C from me. It is fun, but there's only 3 characters, and they just don't have enough to keep me as interested. But we'll see number 2 soon, so we'll see. All right, God of War, the first one, the one that started it all. God of War is a very fun 3D action, slightly platforming contextual type game, and it's all about a man named Kratos who is wronged by the god of war, and he goes insane. And for some reason, he is uber powerful, so much so that he's able to kill gods. I mean, this is the very first game, and there's several of them. So if you can imagine him killing at least one god, like the god of war maybe. This game's story is so interesting, and I will never not be excited to hear a little bit more about it. I just love this retelling of these old gods and just new stuff. And it's cool to see because at this point, why not do something insane? And these games are insane. The fighting is really good. There are a lot of context-sensitive stuff like pressing circle to grab enemies and then pressing several other buttons on screen and then, comboing on someone. Now, the combos are instant. They're not instant, but they are always the same. They're static. They never change. Sometimes the buttons change a little bit, but mostly you're going to be doing the same things on enemies. You fight lots of enemies. You get red orbs from them, which is similar to Devil May Cry. You get red orbs and you spend them on new abilities you have for your swords or your other things. Overall, very fun game. And I only think that the combat sometimes can be a little stiff, and it's the only reason that it'd be like a 9.8. So it's not an S tier for me. But I mean, it's super close. It's just gonna be really hard to get into S. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Gun is, to me, like the real spiritual successor of Red Dead Redemption. It's a really fun, Old West cowboy style, riding horses, shooting guns type of game with some upgrades and some cool weapons, and you ride a horse and you have a decent little story, right? Like you go through and there's a lot of different people you meet and things you perform for people, and overall you're just trying to find this artifact. And that's it. No one's trying to end the world. No one's trying to take over everything, really. I mean, this one guy is trying to, control people, be the boss, be the president almost, right? Like, he's trying to, but he's not ending the world. So it's a really refreshing way to look at things. And back then, this wasn't the type of game you saw. So as open as this game is and as fun as this game is, I can't believe that it came out on the PS2, honestly. Like, it's really cool that this is kind of where those games started. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 are fantastic. So, Gun does have some issues here and there. A lot of, hitbox issues, and just, sometimes it feels too easy to kill people. I don't remember if there was a different difficulty. That didn't make it bad, though. It's a lot of fun. I mean, being able to pop off dudes' heads and shoot them and smash them into things because they're being blown back is a lot of fun. So, Gun for me is going to get an A. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the game. Okay, Timesplitters 2 is a mission-based FPS game that is very similar to Perfect Dark and GoldenEye on the N64. And it's so close, in fact, that the more you increase the difficulty, the more objectives you have in each mission, which is wonderful. That is how it should be. Not just enemies being more difficult and having more health and doing more damage, but also more stuff to do. So, honestly, Timesplitters 2 is a breath of fresh air for the FPS genre at this time. And it's really fun. The story is silly. It's just, time splitters are going in and screwing stuff up. You gotta go get the time crystals and you jump into different time periods. The only problem keeping it from being, super great is the disconnected stories in each area. While some of them are, slightly interesting, it's just, the only central story is getting these time shards back and stopping the time splitters. It's fine, but all the stories in between are these isolated stories, and some of them are just okay, yeah, you want a mafia style one? Sure, here's a mafia style one. Here's a gangster style one. Here's an Old West one. Here's an alien one. It's nothing that big. So, but it's still a really fun game. And the multiplayer is so fun. You can play with your friends. You can play with bots. There's so many modes. So this game, honestly, is getting an A for me. Super fun. Okay, Dot Hack is a third-person RPG that is actually trying to emulate an online MMORPG. It's really interesting because you aren't online and none of these people are real. So each town you go to, and there's only a couple, people are just roaming around the town and will trade you things, and they try and make it interesting, but the trading is okay. They speak out loud to each other themselves. They have little text boxes so you can see as if you're watching general chat in World of Warcraft roll by in the Barrens. Anyone know general chat from World of Warcraft from the Barrens when it first came out? Oh, what a godforsaken place. But It does a decent job, I guess. I don't know. The best job it does is on the message boards. You can back out as if you were on your home screen on your desktop on your computer and read messages that people put on forums. And you actually learn some of the game through that by people saying, hey, how does this skill work? And then they say, someone replies to that. You're reading the answer or the question and then the reply from someone else, and they say, oh, this is how skills work. I'm like, oh, dude, this is the absolutely only way you should be doing this, because I can go in here at any time and read it as if people are posting these, and it posts over the whole game, so it's not all at once. It's not just a dump. It's just a really good. Oh, it's such a good intro. Like, great. And then also some of the people on there speak of like special events, places you can go, things you can do. And there's even a little asshole on there who was making fun of people, and he says mean things to people and people get mad at him. It's so funny. They did such a good job. The gameplay itself is interesting because it's very much like you'd set up an MMO. You hit X to select your enemy you're attacking and you attack over and over. I do jam X a lot, so I'm not sure if that's true, but you can pick special abilities, you can equip different weapons and armor that you find, but it is lacking heavily, and it feels very weird. Like, I don't feel like I have enough to do, and a lot of things miss. Experience gains are so wildly odd. Like, the way that this works is you put in a series of really odd, esoteric words to string together to make a dungeon, and there's like 4 words, and it's like, hidden, forbidden, holy ground. That's one of them. Hidden, forbidden, holy ground. And each one comes with a certain set of things that will change the dungeon you're about to go to. So they're all randomly generated, which means very, boring. But the problem is that you can find whatever you want, whatever element and whatever level you want. Go there and just that's it. Like, you're never punished for doing that. So you just go find the easiest place to go to, and you want to find enemies who are a little bit higher than you, and you gain massive experience and jump through so quickly. And the weapon upgrading is too weird. It's too weird. So this one does come with an anime though that runs alongside it, because the mystery of the story is that people are getting into comas after playing this game. It's the early Sword Art Online, but good, because I hate Sword Art Online. But Dot Hack is interesting in that it follows that kind of isekai feeling, but the people don't actually get trapped in the game world yet. They're just going to comas. So you can watch the anime, it's about 45 minutes, and you can try and connect all events together. So this game is going to get a C. I do wish it was a little better. Okay, whew. All right, Monkey Ball Adventure. Monkey Ball Adventure is not a regular Monkey Ball game, and that is very sad, because Monkey Ball itself is mostly about solving 60-second puzzles where you're a monkey in a ball, and it follows the physics of being in a ball and being on a stage that you can rotate and move around. You pretty much just need to roll the monkey in the ball into the goal. That's it. However, the adventure part is where it changes things. Instead of these little puzzles, you do like a story mode and go through livable areas for the monkeys. And it's very interesting how they have it set up. And everyone has like everyone knows each other. These monkeys are popular here, so you talk to people who know you, and you're the special squad of monkeys. And the in between the puzzles is very frustrating sometimes. So just like in the puzzles, you can fall off of the stage and have what's called a fallout, which is what we call the death on my death counter. So it's really weird to be like, oh, I'm gonna go get a quest from someone and do a quest, and then fall off the world and die. Like, okay, and then restart, okay, I guess I'm gonna go over there again, fall off the world, die. Okay, can I just get the quest, please? It's very interesting. And then some quests are on stages where everywhere is a death trap. You can just fall off, you can get shoved off by wind, caught on fire, smashed by things, tossed around, and it's so there were 3 missions that each took about 2 hours to do, because they are so specific and difficult. So it's a cool idea. You still get to do the puzzles, and those are really fun, but the adventure itself is tough because of how ridiculous it is to maneuver around a world 24/7 in a freaking ball, literally tipping the world. Well, you're tipping the ball. I changed it so that you were tipping the ball so it was easier. So Monkey Ball is getting a C, because while the puzzles were fun, the rest of the game was very weird. All right, Manhunt. Manhunt is the controversial, very gory game back in the day, at least, that was banned in different countries, and it's like, rated too high for stores to sell, which, I can see why. But they did censor some things, whatever. The whole idea of the game is that it's third person and you are in a snuff film. This director has set you free from death row, and the only way out is to try to kill as many people as you can and do what he says. Now, the whole idea is that he's not going to let you out. This is just for a movie that he's making. So you see this all, it's supposed to be from the view of cameras. Now, you are third person, so you're controlling your guy, but the idea is that you're being constantly filmed, and all of the people who come to fight you are told to. They're not paid actors, they're bad guys, but so the whole idea is that your character wants to get out, but he needs to find a different way, because playing this game this guy has is not worth it. So that's what we do. And throughout the whole game, you hide in the shadows and kill people in very gruesome ways. And depending on how long you hold the stealth button, how long you're able to be behind them without being seen and hold the button, you do a more gruesome takedown. And some of them are pretty gruesome, I suppose, but nowadays, still, it's so mundane, seeing it, you're like, oh yeah, I saw that happen in Call of Duty last week, or oh yeah, I saw that happen in Hello Kitty Adventure last week. It's just not the same. So now the game falls entirely on its mechanics and its gameplay. And I'm going to tell you what, it's fine, but it wasn't fun enough. Sadly, I know people are going to be upset, but Manhunt is just a D for me. It just wasn't that fun of a game. Okay, Dragon Quest VIII. Dragon Quest VIII was pretty much artist by Akira Toriyama, who is Dragon Ball, the guy who made Dragon Ball characters, man. Akira Toriyama, it's great. So the character and enemy design is wonderful. I really, really liked all the character designs, how vibrant they looked and how cool they looked. And you can definitely tell it was Dragon Ball Z style, because after a while, there's a part where you can get a high enough tension with the main character, and he loses the thing over his head, and his hair spikes up, and he looks a little bit like maybe he's Goku. So there's that. But the game is an RPG, a very long one. It was technically the longest game I played on the list so far, at 51 hours and 52 minutes, which is really cool. Dragon Quest follows an interesting story about a demon who is imprisoned in the staff, and the staff is in a disturbed, and so this guy comes out, and he pretty much has anyone who possesses the staff try to take over the world for him until he's ready to come out, and then he's summoned, and he comes out and he tries to destroy the world. So the whole game takes place as this is happening. Your main character and his party, who is a king, a princess, and just some random dude who they helped, and he decided to come along with the help, they have been cursed. Now, the main character can't be cursed because it doesn't really say exactly, but he is apparently some kind of special person. The thief, the thief is not special. He just met you later, so he's not cursed. Then the king and the princess. The king is turned into a toad, and he's just his same size, but he looks like a toad. Honestly, he doesn't look any worse than he looks as human form. He's a squat little dude. And then the princess. The princess was turned into a literal horse, and ridden by her father, kept with a bit and reins, and fed, and pulled a cart. I understand the idea that she's a horse. Maybe she can help us through all of this. She would want to. But I kind of thought when you are able to very briefly talk with her halfway through the game, I really wanted her to be like, why does everyone really treat me like a horse sometimes? Why don't you guys tell them that I'm a fucking person? It just is weird, man. They treat her like a horse. So weird. And she's a person. She gets revived in the end. She knows what's happening to her. Oh my God. Anyway, as an RPG, this game does not have any crazy battle system changes, something like Legaia 2. It just doesn't have those. It is a straightforward RPG. However, what you're given is extremely solid. It's a fun story that you learn at a good pace. It's a fun battle system that feels pretty good all the way through. You even get small choices. They aren't huge, but there's small choices on what weapon each character uses and how good it does. There are crafting with the alchemy pot, and you put things together and you can get some cool stuff, which does end up helping near the end of the game for me. And the only problem I have with the whole experience was when you want to level up, and that's something I love doing in RPGs, is leveling up, grinding a little bit here and there to get some levels. And the issue is that you don't fight normal enemies in this game because they just don't give you enough as you get further in. The problem is that you have to grind metal slimes, and they are a specific build to do that. And honestly, there's no reason to farm anything else except for metal slimes. I mean, it's so night and day. Like, there's no reason, and this was already the longest game I played, so it means something that I spent the time to make a metal slime build just enough to kill them, and it still took me 51 hours. The rest of the game is fantastic. It's the only reason I will not put it in S, because of the grind. If I just was grinding regular enemies in several different areas, that would have been fine, because it would have given me like a difference. Otherwise, the slimes come in, you hope to critically hit them, and that's it. There's like no danger. You just do that over and over. So that's why I say it's A. It is like a 9.8. I love RPGs. Okay. Monopoly Party, next game. Monopoly Party is just Monopoly. I don't know what the fuck they were doing. It's also kind of weird because Monopoly Party is this, pushed idea, but the party thing is supposed to be that everyone plays at the same time. It doesn't matter, dude. It only reduces the amount of game by like 20 minutes. I mean, I'm being honest with you. That is the party section. It's that everyone takes their turn and rolls at the same time. You still have to wait for people to do specific things with their properties and try and trade. But goddamn, will you take your turn at the same time, roll the dice, and hope you know who's where? Which is, no. It's so stupid. You might as well just play regular Monopoly so you can see what's going on. And I like Monopoly. This game is just butt, dude. It is. And the way they had the screen set up, it's so fucking busy, man. And this board is right in front of you, like in the middle of everything. And there's only like 2 zooms. There's like super zoomed in or like everything. And so when you have everything, it's really hard to see who's moving and who's where. And when it's super zoomed in, you can't see anything else on the board, so you have to move it around. In a game you're supposed to be moving quickly in. This game gets an E just because I like Monopoly and it's still fun-ish. Persona 3, one of the worst games. No, Persona 3 is a very interesting game. So Shin Megami Tensei was the very first of the series, and this was an offshoot on the PlayStation, number 1 and 2. Number 3 is finally where it hit its stride and kind of like its style and the way that it worked. And I think it's a fantastic game. So as an RPG, it adds a little bit extra, something that I don't find as fun. And that's the social system. The social system to me is too much waiting around and reading, and it's required. And I don't mean to say you don't have to do the social links. I think you could probably beat the game without doing any social links. What I'm saying is that you are always thrown into situations where you talk to people or walk around for a while, and that to me, it's not always that fun. It splits up the combat too much. In most RPGs, you are going to a town to find respite, right? You're going to the town, you're going to buy stuff. Oh, the new town, I'm buying stuff. There's new things to see, there's new things to try. But no, it's the same areas, and the story does change between characters, and that's good. I like that. But it just feels weird to me. I wish it was a little bit more linear in that section, quicker. And I don't like how long it takes sometimes. The stories are interesting. I do like the stories. That's not the problem. It's how it's given to me. Tartarus is interesting. I like how Tartarus functions. The problem is it's a little boring. It all looks the same, man. That's one of the bad things. Combat for this RPG, a little different. You definitely have a little bit different because it's not just attack and use your persona, but you also still have the turn system, which is similar to the other Shin Megami Tensei games. And if you knock down all the enemies by using something they are weak against, you can then have all the party just jump in and do a party-wide attack, and it deals a bunch of extra damage. And of course, you're already doing extra damage because they're weak, so you can really take out a group of enemies extremely quickly. This also means that you can take out an extremely strong group of enemies quickly if you have the right stuff. But if you mess up, you're gonna know because they're gonna kick your ass so fast, man. Which is really cool though, because then it's high risk, high reward. Do you go into this fight, you're like, okay, I know these enemies are strong, I have the stuff to beat them, I'm taking the chance. I mean, that's fun. That's just a fun thing to do. Now, I did get yelled at because I played this game on easy, and sadly, I picked easy because at first I thought I want to beat these games quickly. Off of that little argument between him and himself, honestly, I didn't really care. Someone else mentioned maybe a better way to pick the difficulty of a game is to just whatever it defaults to, and that's what I did, or what I'm doing now. But I played this on easy, so maybe easy was too much. And I really like it when RPGs make me think that the fights are puzzles. Now, here's the good thing. I'm playing back through it for the real ending. The first time I played through it, because I must play through it twice, I played the bad ending just because. I believe I might start all over from the beginning now that I know what I'm doing and do a better job. Do a little quicker. I've read some of the story. We can go through things a little bit quicker, but I'd like to start all over and get through and see the new ending. So this version of my Persona 3 is going to be a little different skewed because this version, going to the bad ending, a little boring. But I'm not taking many points off for it. It's so close to being a perfect game. Just those social links, man. Okay, Kingdom Hearts 2. After number 1, Kingdom Hearts 2 added a lot, which is really good. It added a lot more combos, it added better dodging and blocking, and a little bit more to the fights. It added your drives. The drives are really fun. The worlds are bigger and better. There's just a lot more to do. There's a lot of cool weapons and more story elements, and the story gets bigger and more convoluted, sadly. So Kingdom Hearts 2 is fun, and the story gets too convoluted, although you do get to finally see Mickey a little bit more, which is awesome. That's like the whole point of playing the game. I don't care about anyone else, I just want to see Mickey. And I think it does a good job. The intro is shite. It takes so long. It is cool. I understand it. I get it. It takes too long, man. I've got to do too many things to get to where I'm playing Sora. Roxas is cool and all, but it takes too long. Otherwise, this game is fun, but as I played it, I found myself wishing for something else until the end of the game when fights did pick up, and I'm like, oh, here it is. So that's what I'm going to say. This game could have had a better start because the finish was really good, and that's going to keep it in the A tier. Alright, so the first online Resident Evil game I played was Resident Evil Outbreak, and I played this with Tuna. So if Tuna's out there, if he watches this, what's up, dude? We played through the entire game together online, and you can do that yourself, and it's super easy and totally worth it. Because playing solo, for me, is what would ruin the game. Now, I'm going to try to keep it within reason. Like, the servers don't have to be up. You could only play this solo if people weren't passionate enough to bring this back. So I'm trying to keep in mind that it is still a single player game for a lot of people and might never be for someone. So Resident Evil Outbreak is a fun game. You play with up to 4 people and you are given a scenario. So the stories are kind of disconnected and you go through and you solve whatever problems are in this area, and they all have some different little caveats here and there, and you fight a boss at the end and then you move on. You get graded afterwards, and you can unlock some stuff, although on the servers, I believe most things are unlocked for you, so it's more of just a, I did really well this time. But it does follow the old style of Resident Evil before Resident Evil 4, which is the fixed camera angles and no over-the-shoulder view, and it's a lot of picking up items and just unlocking things and doing specific things. Now this game does feel, because of the smaller disconnected stories, it almost feels a little better. Because, you know, Resident Evil being a big game, long game, after a while it's like, okay, how many more randomly weird objects are going to be used to unlock a door inside of this, you know, prison precinct? Or like this you know, police precinct. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Some things don't make sense in this game, but they are better. Like, it just feels a little bit better in that regard. So it won't get many more points for that, but otherwise it's a very solid game, and playing it online was so much fun. I honestly am going to give this a B because it was a lot of fun. All right, PopCap Hits Volume 1 contains Bejeweled 2 and Astropop. It's fine. It's 2 arcadey type games. I mean, it's Bejeweled. I played through the puzzle mode because all the other modes don't really give you credits, but the puzzle mode, which gives you increasingly more difficult puzzles to solve where you must break every gem on the screen in a specific order to win, gives you credits. I did that, and it was hard, dude. The puzzles are hard. They did a good job, but goddamn are they hard. It took like 12 hours. I'm not shitting you. Like, this game was longer than I could have beaten Antz so many times. But Bejeweled took so long. And then Astropop, I wasn't actually sure how you were supposed to beat it, because it is a brick shooting game. You have a ship at the bottom of the screen, you shoot different colored bricks, you match up the colors, and you get breaks on the bricks. You have some different abilities, and there's 4 different characters, all with a super special ability that will clear out the screen in different ways. There's clearly one better than all the rest. I don't even know why those guys exist. But I had to ask the speedrun community, where the fuck is the end? And they said, if you take all 4 characters in Astropop and get to level 32, you will get what's called the ending screen, which is them all saying, oh, we all made it here, and that's it. So that's what I did. It's a difficult game when you get further. I mean, it's a puzzly game. It's a puzzle-based game. So if I sat down and learned for a while, maybe I get good, but I did not like Astropop. But Jewel was fine. The problem is it's just, it's getting a D. I still had fun, but Okay, Dark Cloud 2. Dark Cloud 2 is such an interesting game. Now, I named the thumbnail says on my video, the game with too many mechanics. And I think some people took that as like I was saying it was bad. I think it could have been better. I don't think it was bad, not at all, not even close. It was a really good game. It's a really fun game. So the game is an RPG, an action RPG, because there are RPG-ish elements, upgrading your weapons, and you maybe don't level up, but so you go through and you are trying to restore the world by going back and forth between the future and the past and doing things in the past to change the future in certain ways so you get the solution to your problems. And so half the game is split between going into dungeons and clearing out dungeons and building up towns and adding different things to those towns through the georama mechanic. And it's really cool. You can build houses, you can build just things. The problem with the georama thing is that you have specific requirements to progress the future, and it just tells you. I mean, most of the time it tells you. There are some question mark things, but really all it takes is you going through the dungeons and unlocking the pieces for georama, which is the reason to go through the dungeons. At the end of some of the dungeon levels, you get a stone that will give you georama parts. When you get them, you suddenly start to get more things you can build. And then halfway through every dungeon, it stops you no matter what, and you must build up to a certain point to get a certain future. That's fine. The problem is, though, I feel so restricted. I can't just build whatever I want to progress the game. Yes, I can build whatever I want sometimes, and whatever I want after I progress the game, but I want to progress the game by just building some cool stuff. I mean, give me some kind of idea. Like, the other feature of the game is having characters move into your towns. Maybe it would be a little bit more about having the characters move into towns, but they are part of it, but not enough. And it's just too much like, build 3 houses, color them red. Okay, now build this. Okay, now build this and color that blue. All right, you're good. But the fighting is fun, and the collecting and upgrading your weapons, which is really fun, upgrading your ride pod. You have 2 characters you can switch between on the fly in the dungeons, and the dungeons feel pretty fun. Honestly, the combat's a lot of fun, especially if you do the little, and I won't say it here, but there's a way you can kind of attack a little bit faster than you can normally do. But that, for me, was fun, but it might not be for everyone else. So instead of spoiling it, I'll stop there and say that Dark Cloud is a really good game and worth playing as an RPG. I am going to give it a B. I think it's just out of A tier for me because there are a million mechanics and some things I wish I could have tried, but felt like, man, it's just another thing I have to learn. It's super close to A, but B is still a very good game. I want everyone to understand that. Dark Cloud 2 is still a good game. Okay, Hurdy-Gurdy. Hurdy-Gurdy is my sister's favorite game, Dr. Delaney. She loved that game and let me borrow it so I could play for the channel. And it is such an interesting concept. It is a farming, or it's a herding simulator. So you are a kid named Hurdy and Gertie. You're a kid named Gertie, and your dad has fallen under the spell of a bad herder who has he can like cast spells, and your father is the only person who can beat him in a herding tournament. And if whoever wins gets this magic, so he put my dad to sleep with the magic. I don't know how he has it. I don't know about that part. But so the whole idea is that you need to prove yourself to be a good enough herder to join the competition in your dad's stead and beat him so that you can get the magic and save your dad from being sleepy. He's pretty sleepy. I mean, he's fine. He's just sleeping. But obviously you do need to wake him up. It'd be kind of shitty to have your only parent, I think, be asleep all the time. So you go around herding animals, and there's several types of animals, and you herd them into their pens in different ways. And there's even 1 or 2 aggressive animals that you can herd and one you can't herd that will just hurt you and eat other animals. And there's a lot of cool little things you can do by herding the animals. The problem is that there are too many stages that are not about herding, or the game ends kind of like with like a whimper. It's not interesting. So you're supposed to be fighting this guy to be the better herder. The problem is that it just gives you 3 challenges for the boss fight. You must beat these little stages in a certain time, and if you do, you win. That's it. There is no special fighting against him in a hurting environment, which would have been way more interesting. Like, what if you hurt him or knocked him down to continue hurting animals and stop him? But no, it's all just hurt. And the stage before that, it was sneaking. There are so many sneaking around stages. I don't want to sneak around. I want to hurt animals. I don't know how sneaking has anything to do with hurting. So the idea is so cool, and there could have been so many cool things you could have done with hurting, but they just kind of dropped it at, like, half the animals get hurted by a flute. So I liked the small amount of game there was, and I wish there was more. And it is getting a C, but I think a game like that could be way interesting. I just really wish they've been able to make it run better than 240p at 20 frames. There's that too. Okay, Baldurs Gate Dark Alliance 2. This was the second in the series. We played number 1 earlier, and number 2 adds a lot more to the game, including 2 extra characters, although there are some secret unlockable characters, and they are all kind of new. They don't have the same classes as the first one, which were Archer, Dwarf Fighter, and Elf Sorceress. This one actually has a Rogue and a Necromancer, and they're really cool. I love that they have some new classes and some new abilities, because it would have felt bad, like Champions of Norrath 2, Champions Return to Arms, having the same characters and the same abilities mostly. All the characters have different stuff. Now, this game is a little different. I think the story is fine, but it's just the same thing. In the end, you're still going to the Onyx Tower to fight it, because that's what ends up happening. Someone resurrects the Onyx Tower from the first game, and you just do a series of quests to get there. It's this very same basic thing, although the places you go to are a little bit interesting. There is one that literally says on the way back from your quest that someone stole the item you just got. You got to go find it again, and you got to go find it. So, I mean, whatever, it's fine, but the game itself is still fun. I like the changes. I like that there is new stuff to do. There are even class trainers for everyone that gives you super special abilities if you have the money you want to spend. There's a little bit of crafting. You put gems in items, although it's really nothing that interesting. And they didn't add cool chase items, which sucks so much. So this one is better, in my opinion, and will be getting a B. It was a fun experience, and you can play it 2-player, and it's still fun, but I wish there's some more items to get, man. All right, next game is going to be Resident Evil Outbreak. Resident Evil Outbreak File 2. So this is practically a DLC of Outbreak Volume 1, or Outbreak File 1, and the differences are small. You do have, of course, new maps, but you can shoot while moving. Now, you're pretty much tiptoeing, like very slowly moving, but you can move while firing, and it's so cool. Too bad Tuna and I didn't remember to do that, because most of the game we didn't. So the very last boss, we both went, oh no, you can move while firing. So the whole game we played handicapped, technically, since they gave you the ability. Now, it's the same thing. It's the same game. It's just 5 different maps with the ability to move and shoot, and puzzles and keys and stuff galore. Now, there are some new things like animal zombies in one level, which is actually kind of interesting. It's not a bad level. And, other than that, it's the same story. You're all disconnected stories trying to leave Raccoon City, doing all these things in different areas, and there's zombies. It's okay. It is about the same. Sadly, this series ended with the 5 maps that were supposed to be made in File 3 gone. We're never going to get them. This is it. You can play this one online as well, and please do, please. All right, next game is 13. 13 is interesting. It is a first-person shooter stylized in a comic type of, like, graphics, and it's really cool. I like it. And you even have these cute comic style, like, words come up when you're reloading and when things happen, and like little speech bubbles that come up and say things. It's fine, like bang and boom, I think. But as an FPS game, the story is, your Amnesia story. I don't even have to say any more Amnesia. So it's fine. It's about killing the president, and they think you did it. That's it. And then there's a plot to get you in trouble, and you're somehow alive still, and it's fine. The guns are fine. The gameplay is fine. It just, I wish it was better. I wish there was a little bit more to it. It felt short. It felt bare bones. It was fine. I'm giving it a C. It was fun. I felt like there could be a lot more for it. Okay, so I'm sure some people are excited to see Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and instead of waiting, I will go ahead and set it in the S tier. It is an extremely good game. The upgrades from Vice City and 3 are... The shooting is so immensely better that the entirety of the game includes you fighting multiple people and doing it really well. Like, it was so much fun to fight multiple people. I never felt like I was outgunned because the shooting sucked. It was because I was dumb and came around a corner too early. Man, it was just a fun game. The stories were fun. The fact that you're like, things make sense. The things that happen make a lot of sense. I mean, come on, man. I don't know. The characterization of of certain characters was great. I mean, some of it was funny. I liked that you were betrayed. I like, the memes from this game, of course, but just overall, the gameplay was fun. The only thing I didn't like about the game was that it was not clear that by the end of the game you needed a certain amount of territories, so I didn't get them until the end of the game when you needed them. It's not like 100% clear. I mean, sure, I was like, okay, I'll get more territories. But because I had so few, I just spent like 2 hours doing nothing but getting territories. And that 2 hours was kind of boring. Like after the 5th one, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm about to mow down a bunch of dudes with another minigun because I keep going back and getting the minigun. It's fine. It didn't really change my score because, you don't have to do that. And it wasn't bad. It was just like, I was kind of like, okay, this is still fun. It's just, I want something else to be happening. Like, give me something else to do. Like, make this more interesting. Not even a big deal. Okay, next game, X-Men Legends. X-Men Legends is a isometric, almost like Dark Alliance and Champions of Norrath, but it's not. It's more of like a hero game where you switch between 4 characters that you put on your party, and they all upgrade with RPG abilities, kind of like Baldurs Gate Dark Alliance, except this one is you have 4 characters, you can switch between all 4 of them so that each one can do different things in combat situations, and you can take advantage of weaknesses or some of your allies are just so friggin' strong. And I found out through the end of the game that there's a couple that were just super strong for certain reasons. Now, the game itself is fine. The story is, your X-Men story. It's got Magneto as the bad guy. I mean, that's pretty on par for the course. And you've got a lot of cool levels, and you've got lots of mutants that you recognize. The story's okay. It's fine. I mean, you're going to fight Magneto, and you're trying to find out where the hidden base is so that you can go stop him from, taking over the world, and that's exactly what you do. I think the thing holding it back for me is that sometimes it feels like you're just mashing the abilities. You just mash, and then mashing, your attacks. It's still a very fun game, and actually it's going to get a B because I still enjoyed it, but there was something a little bit missing for it to hit A, like more to the combat than just running forward and smacking into dudes. Still fun. Next game is Escaluda, a game I actually got yelled at by someone who likes bullet hell shooters and told me I absolutely did not finish the game. Bullet hell shooters began on arcade systems and were quarter eaters. Because you died very easily, you had to insert another quarter to continue. So the whole idea was that you get good enough so you don't have to spend that many quarters and you can beat the game. If you got good enough to beat the entire game in 1 quarter, it was a trophy. And that is not how the game is necessarily beaten. That is a cool thing, and I will always respect people who have done that. But damn, it's just not fun because specifically it was made for those things. And when it comes to home console, PS2, it's another bullet hell shooter that gives you unlimited continues until you see the credits. And because I didn't cheat or glitch or anything, and I didn't select easy mode, I just played, that's the end of the game, man. It took about 45 minutes, and I don't know what the story was. It's anime bullet hell game, and I flew a flying magic woman and shot things. And it was hard. And it was freaking hard, man. God damn. I'm not playing it again. And for me, I don't like bullet hell shooters that much. But I'm going to recommend it to bullet hell fans because it's got some interesting mechanics. I just don't like them myself. All right, Ridge Racer 5 is next, and Ridge Racer 5 was one of the launch titles on the PS2, and it went much more for the short arcade, nice graphics to show off for the beginning of the system's life, and that's really cool. It's still a fun game. It is very arcadey, and the driving is very odd. turning corners feels very weird. It's like there's like this specific way they want you to corner, and if you find it, you find it. And if you don't, you're squirreling all over. But when you find it, it feels good because it's so smooth. They made it clear when you found how to get around a corner and when you haven't. And that's actually kind of cool. I like that. Like, it just makes you feel like, I made the right choice. And I don't know what that satisfying moment is right there, but finding your way around those turns is really cool. I really like it. So I like it for that. There are a lot of unlocks, but I was able to reach the credits by just taking one car all the way through and winning everything. And it was the fastest, worst controlling car, and I just learned to get good at controlling it. That was it. So it was a fun game. I think there could have been a lot more to it, but honestly, as a launch title who was really short, it was still pretty fun. I think there could be a lot more to it, but, you know, it's a fun racing game. Fun racing game. Rosen Maiden Dual Waltzer is the first in 3 games, although really 2 for storytelling, of the anime Rosen Maiden, and this was Japanese only, and there is no English patch or anything. So I held up a tripod with my phone on it with the Translate app on real-time mode, and we played through 15 hours, probably increased by about 3 because of the translating, but 15 hours of visual novel, and it was weird. I love translating and making fun of and trying to figure out what they're saying, but this one was shite, man. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. I hated the story. The dolls are 2 feet high, and they come into this high school boy's house, and he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's like slave master or like husband wife. It's slightly vaguely kind of like that with a high school boy and 2 foot high living dolls, and it's really weird. And you got to go see it just to hear some of the story things that happen. I had the videos up, so this one is getting a D because it was still really fun to do, and I love translating. I don't know why, but I love translating. Okay, next game is Horses, and Horses is a fucking lie. Horses is part of the Pets universe from Ubisoft. Now, they didn't make it themselves. They had Phoenix Games. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they don't even credit themselves on their own wiki. They don't want to be known for horses because Horses is not a game about horses. Horses is a game about 5 weird, maybe teenagers, like 19, 20, maybe 20, in horse school that go around and do horse competitions and do really weird stuff in between. You sometimes ride your horse. Sure, you do these little stupid practice things. You get to control your entire week, and you do things for your horse. Your horse has to perform well enough at 3 different tasks, and then it also needs to be, its health needs to be good. And then you can do whatever else you want. The thing is that it is so quick to do those things, and then what you do is you set your week up to do the competition things to get the score. Then you take care of your horse to get his health up high enough. And when you meet all the criteria, you then I just went to the library, which is a place you're supposed to learn more about horses and horse stuff or something. I don't know. And I'd go to the library, turn around and walk out. And then it would be the next day. I'd go into the library, turn around and walk out. And then it would be the next day. And I did that for like a week or 2 until finally I get to the competition. It made the game way shorter. But let me tell you what, it was 8 hours of mostly picking up my horse's shit. You have to take care of your horse's stable to raise its health. And it's the easiest one of the mini games you do is washing it, brushing it, which is just as fun as it sounds, picking up its shit and putting more hay down. That's it. And then I think you put its horseshoes on. You deal with you clean its horseshoes. It's a terrible game. But the story is awesome because one girl has bulimia as written in her journal, and we've snooped on her journal. Someone puts steroids in my horse. Then someone steals my horse, and then my horse comes back. We race someone on our horse who's trying to steal it. I don't know why. We don't ever see them. And our boyfriend has been sabotaging this whole thing. And the best part of the story, the American girl, because we're not in America most of the time. The time we go to America, the American girl dances forever. To the point where I'm like annoyed. It's not funny anymore. It's annoying. And then the camera pans up and we go, oh, thank God she's done dancing. And then it pans back down and she dances some more. I don't understand what choices they have made for this game, but it's horrible. It's horrible. Next game, ATV Off-Road Fury 2. A very fun quad racing game. It's just super fun. The only thing I didn't like about it was the tricks that you do in the freeform section at the end. I didn't like that at all. It was so unfun. But racing these things, racing on quads is like racing on dirt bikes, kind of like in Excite Bike 64. Oh, I love playing that game with my dad. This is the same. The hills on the dirt tracks are what you need to focus on to win your races. You go up a hill and you need to land going down or at least being level. Because if you land on the side of a hill, you obviously slow down. So you need to get good at making your ATV jump over certain distances and landing at certain distances. And you can do this by pulling back on the analog stick and flicking forward as you leave a jump. You can leave the jump and go further or shorter, and as you're coming up to it, you get a good view of what the jumps are going to look like, so you can choose. Any mistakes you make is because you didn't pay attention, and that is really cool. The turning is fine, the like drifting around turns is fine and stuff. It's not really about that. It is much more about keeping your speed up on the jumps. Obviously turning is important, but you know, you can bail off your bike and get back on quickly and it's fine. It's the jumps, man. The better you get at jumps, the quicker you get jumping over things and sending yourself flying, the better. It's super fun. I think that the trick section is what holds it back for me. But overall, it's just a fun racing game. I wouldn't put it in A though, because, you know, racing games are fine. It's just, you know, it's done. Although the next game, Downhill Domination, is a little different because this is not a sport that it can exist in this type of fashion. Downhill Domination is an arcadey bike racing game where you go down a mountain. Everywhere you are, you're going down a hill. And wherever you are avoiding things at breakneck speeds, picking up power-ups, throwing bottles at your other characters' heads to stop them in their tracks, turboing off of things. It's super fun. This game is so freaking fun, man. I don't know why. It's so fast-paced, and when you get going really fast and you're doing really well, it just feels so good. It's so good. So this one is not even about racing so much as it is about just going downhill as fast as you can. It's so fun, man. So fun. I don't even know what to say about it. It's that simple. All right, we get to my absolute favorite PS2 game, and I'm about to beat it again on my Retroid Pocket 5 here soon. I'm at the last couple stages. God Hand. God Hand is a fantastic game. So the story is, the story's fine. It's a story. It's about a god and a demon and the God Hand, and they fought, and you win with the God Hand. And so the God Hands were kept in a village, and someone steals the God Hand who actually lived in the village, and he's trying to be a demon, and it's just demon unleashing and killing people, and you get both God Hands and you kill him. That's the God Hand. It's simple, man. Now the game itself is definitely hilarious, right? Like it's a funny game, and they meant to make it funny. Some things fall flat for me. That's just how it goes. Some things were hilarious. It's out of nowhere, but it's really good. So that doesn't really change the points very much. It was fine. The story's fine. The dialogue's fine. The silly characters are fine. I don't like some of the things in the game. They're just like weird. But the big thing is the combat. It's all about the combat. Now this game is a third-person fighting game. It's a third-person fighting game where you go around big areas like you were progressing through a story and beating people up, but fighting game style with combos and specific moves that do specific things. And it's wonderful because enemies also have their own sets of moves they can use and types of characters that you fight, all with different weaknesses and strengths against your fighting moves. And this is where it opens up. You can put any move on any button you want and use it. And all the moves have different things, like are they going to hit high, are they going to hit low, are they going to evade a high attack, are they going to guard break, are they going to launch characters, are they going to juggle characters, does this thing send people flying no matter what happens, like how long does it take this move to attack, how many attacks does it do, how much is the damage for each attack, how much damage overall does it do, is it worth putting here, is it worth, so it's really cool, it's so open, and I don't normally like fighting games, but it's so satisfying to run up to a big group of characters, and beat the shit out of them. It's just made so well. It feels so open, and you have so much control over what you do. You also have the God Hand ability, which the one thing about the game I wish is that it was more than just an invincible button, but otherwise just pulling off combos, using the roulette orbs to do fun moves and get enemies close together and get multiple enemies in one attack and feeling cool about it. You're like, yeah, I got them all in one attack. The bosses are really weird. There's just so many cool things about the fights. It's so much fun, and it moves so fast. Oh my God, it's just so fast. The story is short and funny, and then you just fucking fight. So, I mean, you know, like, it's the perfect game. This one is an obvious S. I have to say, it's an obvious S. So it'll be my favorite game. I don't know if it'll ever get kicked out, but damn, man, damn. Okay, next game is Bomberman Kart DX. That's right, you heard me right. Bomberman Kart DX. It is a Japanese-only game, and it is very weird because it consists of 3 entirely separate games. A kart racing game, and a regular Bomberman multiplayer game, and a kind of roguelike game. I don't understand what happened there, but it's not even the first, it's the second roguelike game they've made in a series of Bomberman games. So the Bomberman kart itself was pretty easy to translate. It wasn't difficult at all because it's mostly kart racing. It was fun. The kart racing, once you get used to it, you get used to it. It's not quite like Mario Kart. You need to learn the differences in how drifting works and how to turn and when to brake. And when to like let go of the gas and brake gas type thing, like to get around corners fast, because it is hard and you do need to do some challenges that require you to drive really fast. Some of them you really can't make mistakes. So that's really cool. The driving itself is okay. It's a lot about having light, medium, and heavyweight classes and doing challenges for each. I didn't really care. It didn't feel that different when I raced the different like classes. They felt most of the same. I mean, heavy really sent you spinning off of your drifts because, you know, you're heavy. But I don't know, man. It wasn't so different. It felt pretty same for each one. But there are some special challenges around the levels, and it's mostly just participating in driving, getting better until you do the big race and you win. That's it. I mean, there's enemies that you fight at the end, but all it is driving and picking up the power-ups you normally pick up and hitting them, and that's it. You hit them a couple times and you win. There's no race. It's really weird. So that's kind of cool. And that was about 8 hours long. And then the second game I played was the roguelike. It was a top-down roguelike game with like 5 characters. You have white Bomberman, black Bomberman, red and green are a team, yellow and pink. And all of them had different weapons that they could use. Each one had a main weapon and a secondary weapon. So Bomberman had a sword or a boomerang and some other weapons, physical weapons, and then he had bombs and different types of bombs, like timed bombs and regular bombs. And you go around these stages where you find the exit to each floor, and it's just like random rooms, kind of like Binding of Isaac. And you go around and you find stuff, and you get some pickups, you get some things that will make you stronger, and you get health, and you get making your bombs explode bigger and stuff for a little while, and I think an invincibility thing, and you pick up items that you must take to town to identify. It's so weird. It's a Bomberman game. It was fun though. You can play it 2-player on the same console, and there's a post game. And then you have the original Bomberman game at the very end, and that is just Bomberman multiplayer. You pick bots or you play with real people, and it's super fun. It's just the normal Bomberman stuff. I mean, if you like Bomberman, it's good. You try and blow each other up, and whoever is left at the end is the winner. And so Bomberman DX is going to get a surprising C for me because, like, it could have been way worse, but, I mean, again, this is a 7, and for me, a 7 is fun. There's a lot of things that it could work on that would make it a lot more fun, but it's just a weird little game. I don't know. It deserves a C. Okay. The next games are the Star Wars Lego version. Yeah, Star Wars 1 and 2 Lego Star Wars. They're really fun. They follow the movies. That's it. I mean, you play as Lego characters, and you fight enemies from the movies. You follow the movies. They don't talk because it's Lego, and at this point they don't talk or anything, so everything is done like charade style, and you know, the best thing ever is when Luke is talking to Darth Vader, and Darth Vader's like pointing at himself, and so he's trying to like convince Luke that he's his dad. So instead of saying, you know, I'm your father, and Luke going, no, he just holds up a picture of Darth Vader holding him as a baby and points at it. It's the best thing they could have ever done. They didn't mime it or anything. He holds up a picture and like points at it. He's like, look, see when you were little. So good. It's a really relaxing game that you can play with. You can play with your kids. I mean, I'm gonna get my son to play soon because he's starting to get into video games. So I'm gonna have him play through the game. It'll be easy. It's easy. It's a simple game. It's fun. It's a big collectathon. Both games are really fun, and I'm giving them both Bs. I know A's are probably what a lot of people would say, but for me, it's a very basic game. So I enjoyed it a lot, but there's not enough to it for me. Is really what I want to say. All right, next is Half-Life, and Half-Life is so weird to be playing on the PS2, I'll be honest with you, and I used the mouse and keyboard yet again, and it was super, super fun. This, unlike Soldier of Fortune, is a game that has environmental storytelling, and the enemies are more varied in ways that make it fun. You are now watching out for specific things rather than just dudes with guns, which, I mean, any game to be able to do that is great. It makes it more interesting in an FPS when you are surprised by what you're about to see. But Call of Duty now, the main story, you know everyone's gonna have a gun and shoot at you. That's the whole point. But a game like this just has a lot going for it, and there's not even that much story. It's like very hidden and not like big, and some it's weird, but it's good. It's like they did a good job at making a place feel somewhat like it exists. This black mesa underneath the ground. It's a good job. The guns are fun. The fighting is fun. I'm putting it at an A. The only thing I don't like about it is that the story is so sparse. I wish it was a little bit bigger. I also wish it was like, I don't know. It gets an A. It's just out of S tier range. Just out of S tier. All right. The next game is Celebrity Deathmatch. It's getting an F because it was boring. I do not like. This was when I was younger, so this is like all stuff I'm familiar with, all the celebrities and all the things happening and the things they say, but it's just crap, man. I don't care about the celebrities. I don't give a crap about them. The moves are weird. The fighting's weird. It's all just weird. There's a creative character. That's about it, man. That's about it. All right, next game is Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, and I'm gonna go ahead and get it right out there right now, but this game is getting an S tier. I really, really enjoyed this RPG and how interesting the combat was for someone not only trying to beat the game very quick, but just in general. So this game also follows the turn system, but this one it's the actual Shin Megami Tensei turn system where you have the same number of turns, you have characters in your party, and you are able to get an extra half turn if you use an enemy's weakness or get a critical hit. And if you do that, your turn then flashes and becomes a half turn, or there's other terms for it, but I'm calling it a half because there are reasons why it would be a half turn, and so you get extra turns, and so your whole idea is to exploit their weaknesses all the time so that you can get as many half turns as possible to double everyone's turns in your RPG game where you're fighting, and then make it so that when they hit you, they lose turns because you and the enemy lose turns if you hit someone who is immune or who takes no damage. And that's really cool, or you miss. And so you can make them have no turns and you have all the turns. I mean, it's not that easy, but it is super fun to do. And gimping myself by not doing my usual grinding, which I love grinding in RPGs like this. I didn't, because I'm trying to beat these games quick. I beat it with a slightly lower level party and level demons than most people, and I explored very little of the game. And even that was what made it. This game is just awesome. But the fights were so much like a puzzle that that's what it needs to be. I want to go into a fight and go, oh my god, the only way to win is to do some things real specific right now, and then have them happen. And if they don't, you gotta start the fight over. And then you do it again, you hope when you get to that point, you're like, okay, am I ready for this set of events? Yes, I am. And then you do it, and it's like, boom, you win. So satisfying, and I really like, it's Persona, but without the social links. That's what it is. That's why Persona is not in S, because I really wish the social links weren't there. Really do wish. All right, next game is Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy X was a game I played a lot when I was younger. I loved Final Fantasy X. You've got Blitzball, you've got your RPG stuff, you can switch characters in and out of battle at will during any fight, even boss fights, which is really cool. That's like a small thing, but it's fun. And you have a huge sphere grid for each character, or it's one big sphere grid and everyone starts in a different spot, and you gain levels and you spend them on different spots in the sphere grid. It's not your normal leveling up system. You get different spheres and can spend them on different things. You can send characters into whoever sphere you want. You can go have Titus be the healer and Yuna be the damage dealer. She uses, physical attacks. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. Because they set up like now, it's not that easy though. If you want to do something like that, you need to either over level or get real creative with how you get your orbs, and that's possible through playing Blitzball, which is the big mini game. Whereas Final Fantasy, 7 had chocobo racing mostly, and number 8 and 9 both had card games. They had Triple Triad. It is really interesting that the card games in there were like this, but this one has Blitzball is the main one. There's the Monster Arena, which is also a big one, but the Blitzball is something you can start from the beginning of the game and play to the end and get some of the best items in the game way early if you can get good enough at it. So overall, the story is really interesting. It's a little hard to understand. You really need to parse through some stuff and make some assumptions here and there. It's not that bad. It's not like Kingdom Hearts, but I wish there's a couple more concrete things to hold on to feel like I knew what some things meant, but overall it's a very good game, and I think the story is the one thing. I really wanted it to be better. It would be an S tier if the story was for me a little bit on point. It just didn't feel as on point as I wished it was. Alright, Guitar Hero Rock the 80s is Guitar Hero with 80 songs. It has very little to it except for some 80 songs, and that's it. I think you get 30 songs and you're done. It's fine. The songs are fun, but it's nothing, it's nothing like the other games that feel like they have a lot of effort put into them. And I believe it's because Harmonix, who stopped doing Guitar Hero games, Harmonix, went and left, and they worked on Rock Band and stuff like that. This is their last Guitar Hero game, I believe. So that's probably why. So, whatever. It's fine. D for me. Fun, but Alright, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is a very interesting Dragon Ball Z game, and I had a lot of fun with this game, even though I don't like fighting games. Now, like I said, I don't like fighting games, I'm not good at them, and the fact that I knew about Dragon Ball Z beforehand was helpful. If you don't know about Dragon Ball Z, do not play this game thinking you'll understand anything new about it. Like, oh, hey, I'll watch this and I'll figure out how the story goes. No. This is not the game to play for that. This is the game to play for people who already know enough about it to know where they're at and what they're doing, and then use those characters to fight. And the fighting system is pretty cool. I think there is some depth. I see some people playing it competitively. I don't think it's accepted as a competitive game because there's not enough to make it competitive, so that's fine, but it seems competitive enough, and it has a really good moveset for the characters. I like how things work. Charging up works just like it does in the show. You charge up and you do a big ol' attack. It's so satisfying. I, on the other hand, don't play fighting games, but it was really cool to go through all that stuff. So it's getting a B. Please understand that if I liked fighting games, it would probably be an S or an A at least, but Alright. Next game is Dark Watch. Dark Watch is a very weird FPS game that has a very interesting setting, and it's like vampires, and you are this member of, well, you don't start out as this, but you go to be a Dark Watch member who is fighting monsters and evil in an Old West style themed, as well as being dark and demons and stuff, which is really cool. You play as a vampire practically through the entire game, and you can help people or hurt people, and you get different powers based on whether or not you're evil or you're good. And if you help people by taking away the vampireism, then you get a certain set of moves, and if you infect them or feed off them, you get bad moves. And I mean, evil moves. They're good moves. So you can choose what you want. You got some cool weapons. You got a kind of interesting story. The graphics are pretty decent. For shooting, it was fun. It was actually a lot of fun to play. I think it falls a little flat for me because it tries to do a lot. Like, there's a hub world for a short amount of time, and then it's just gone. I don't understand why they had it there for 6 missions, and then it's gone. The story was okay. I did not like the part about the woman betraying you, and your character is fully clothed in a sex scene, and she's not. Clearly not. It's so weird. It's so weird. So Dark Watch gets a B because it was fun, but they could have fixed it. Okay, the next game, Little Britain. It's dumb. It's like 8 mini games and a hidden one. 7 mini games and a hidden one. 6? I don't even know how many mini games there were. They're all dumb, dude. They're all so dumb. I mean, the one where you play like Tetris with food going into someone's mouth and their stomach, and then at the end filling their stomach up and vomiting on people. That's the only thing that was interesting because it was silly. Like it's like silly. You're like, oh yeah, I stacked my stomach up with food and I'm puking on people. But that's it. The mini games are dumb. They're stupid. There's no reason to play them. There's 3 different difficulties for each one. Ugh, it's just, the hidden mini game isn't even that fun. It's just memory snap, man. You just reveal pirates and you have to reveal 2 of the same pirate and they go off the board. That is it. That's it. It's like, it takes like 10 minutes to do because it takes a minute to like navigate. So, ugh. 6 mini games. It's crap. The humor's crap. Blah. Skip it. All right, The Warriors is next, a game that a lot of people want a remake or remaster of. And The Warriors is such a bizarre little game. It's a third-person action, and you do have mission-based portions of the game where it's mostly, you start out before the movie The Warriors, that was made way back in the day. You start out before, and you are introducing a couple new people to the Warriors gang, and you're learning about stuff, and you're doing missions, because it would not work if it was just the Warriors movie. There's not enough to go off of, so they have a lot of stuff before it. And it's really cool. You do go around and you fight people. The fighting system is really interesting. You fight multiple people, and you have some like combos, and you steal stuff, and you like just are a general annoyance. You fight cops, and you go through the story. The whole idea is that there's like thousands and thousands of gang members and different gangs in New York. I think it was New York. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but in New York, and you are vying for control of the city with the gangs and the police officers, of course, were the people, but the gangs are just kind of like dispersed and they don't work together very well. But there's this one dude who's very high up in the gang society that wants to get everyone together and take over the city. And he tries, but someone kills him, blames it on our people, the Warriors, and we get blamed, and so we're getting chased around the last half of the game. It is a cool game. It's, just like you're going around as a gang trying to prove yourself, and so you're tagging things and stealing things and showing other gangs how good you are by beating them up and painting your tags over their stuff. That was it. Painting, tagging things. It makes people mad. So it was okay. I didn't really find it that fun. It's honestly, for me, it's getting a C. I mean, it was fun sometimes. Just, It was All right, next game is Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank is getting an easy A. S is only not there. I don't even know why. I feel like it could just be a little bit more for it to be perfect. And I think some of the later games might improve upon what it's already done. But this is a third-person action slight platformer where you carry guns and you follow a singular story, and you do missions on planets where you have a couple goals on each planet, and when you complete them, you learn a little bit more about the story, and you're going to these places for whatever story purpose it is. So it's a fun game. It's silly. Some of the bad guys are silly, like the little TV show spots where the bad guy is like taking over planets is funny. It's like he's explaining to people why he's taking them over, and it's hilarious. The voice acting is really good. The guy who speaks for Titus, I believe, is the main character, or he will be. So right now he's not, but he will be in the second one. So this one is just that. But the voices are good. The guns are fun. The fighting is fun. It's a lot of fun. I just felt like, I don't know, there's a little bit more to it that needed to happen for it to be perfect. So maybe it's just me, but. All right, Pac-Man World 2 is another little 3D platformer, and less on action, but there is fighting enemies, and it takes place in the Pac-Man world where the ghosts unknowingly take the golden fruit off a tree that was hiding a demon. The demon comes out and uses the ghosts from Pac-Man to fight Pac-Man, and you got to go around his world and go to different levels, and you beat the levels pretty much just by going through them, and then you fight the bosses. And when you get to the last boss, you kill him and you win. So it's a very, easy to understand game. The story is simple. The gameplay is very simple as well. It took like 4 hours at most to beat it, so it's easy to beat in like 1 or 2 sit downs. It's cutesy. It probably would have been better for someone younger, because it just wasn't like challenging in any way, except for one of the bosses that was just bullshit. So Pac-Man World 2 for me gets a C. It was still fun, but All right, Shadow Hearts is a very interesting RPG, a very expensive one at $125 when I originally bought it physical. It's a hefty price, but it is a very interesting game because it has a very fun gameplay mechanic during your RPG fights. So it's an RPG through and through. You're fighting, you have several members on your team, magic, attack, defend, item, all that jazz. And the story is interesting, but really where it is the battles. And so you have this wheel, and the wheel will turn a dial, and you must hit specific spots on it to get your attacks, your items, and your magic to activate and sometimes do critical hits or heal more or whatever it is. It's so much fun that when instead of just hitting X for attack like you would in Shin Megami Tensei, you just hit X for attack, you now hit X and you must then play a mini game and hit it right, or you don't do any damage, or you do less damage. So if you get better at the mini game of hitting the button at the right spot around the wheel, you do more damage and it's like more rewarding. So it's good to get used to, and it makes the battles more actionable. It makes it more interesting. It's not just sitting there going, okay, attack, okay, attack. So it automatically makes the battle so much fun. Every time you get into a battle, you're like, all right, I gotta play well. It's not just about hitting attack or understanding weaknesses. So the story is interesting. I do like the story. You end up killing God. I mean, Japanese RPG much? The Final Fantasy much? It's a really fun game. The main character is kind of silly, transforming into a demon, everyone having their powers from different aspects. The story was interesting in bits and pieces. It tried to be a horror RPG, and for a little bit it was doing a decent job, but it's just too cartoony in areas that it just doesn't feel horror-ish, and I really wish it was, because they tried to do something with a very dramatic telling of a story by a character, an old woman, and it was such a cool attempt, but it didn't land for me. So everything else about the game is wonderful. So it's getting an A. It's so close to an S. It's so close to an S. I wish the horror vibe was more interesting. It is a direct sequel to Kudelka from the PS1, in case you're interested. Next game is Klonoa 2. Klonoa 2 Lunatia's Veil was a fun, short platforming game, side-scroller actually, 2D, which is interesting, 2D on a 2.5D, and it does it well. You fire a ring off where you can grab enemies, and they do different things once you grab them, and you use those to solve small puzzles in the world. You don't have any extra moves. It's all about what enemies can do when you grab them, and what bosses do when they shoot something at you and you grab it. It's really cool. It's simple. It's not hard to understand. It's fun. It's short. I think the environments are nice. How they show you things when you're zooming in through like the snowboarding and the surfboarding and like just like moving through the level and grabbing things in the 3D environment from a 2D perspective is fun. It's a fun game. The only problem is that it's just short and the story is you're a dreamer and you're helping someone, I guess. I don't know. The kingdom's names are too on the nose, like the Kingdom of Despair. It's like, okay, Klonoa 2. All right, next game is Jak and Daxter, the only game so far that I've beaten 100%, and it was a very fun game. Just like Jak and Daxter, just like Ratchet and Clank, it's another one of those action platformer games, and it is very fun. The characters are funny, and the missions are interesting. The world feels real. There's a lot of detail. The challenges are fun. Just moving around the level is fun. I really like the movement options the game has. You get to ride a bike. The bosses are fun. The dialogue is really good, and the voice acting is pretty good too. I mean, even though Daxter speaks a lot because your character doesn't speak, Daxter's still funny, and it's still fun to hear. And, you know, when you die, he's like standing over your body, and he says some little witty little line to you as you're dying. So that's fun. It's just an overall fun game. I don't know if I'd say it's perfect, though, and I think the other games in the series will show that. Now, I just want everyone to remember, A is extremely good. S is literally perfect. There will be very few S games, just so everyone knows. All right, Kessen is a very weird strategy RTS, and it's one of the game launch titles, and for the PS2. It's an interesting game. The problem is it just doesn't give you enough time to look at things before I hit credits. Now, there is more. There's another character I can play, but the whole idea of the channel is to beat games to the credits, and once you've beaten the game, where the game creators are like, hey, this is the end of the game, you can play more if you want, though.
that's it for me. Now, I will come back and play it. I think it'll be interesting to see because it will be longer and it will be harder as far as I understand. The problem is that the fights itself, when you're on the map looking at your big hordes, your armies, I don't understand how all of them work in tandem and how weaknesses and resistances really work. It all ended up being, as you're moving those little armies around the battlefield, using special abilities that hit your enemies from far away. Because when you thin out their numbers, the more people you have in your troops over theirs, the better. If you have a higher number, you will most likely win. It doesn't always mean you're going to win, but it most likely will. So using abilities like barrages and cannons and even like arrows and guns, perfect. That's what you do. Spam those things, restore them with your commander, and spam them some more. It's an interesting game, and I think the ones later on in the series will do well, but this one was just so boring, man. It was so boring. The next game is Scalar, and Scalar was a surprise, literal hidden gem for me. I'd never heard of it, never heard anyone say anything good or bad about it, and wow, Scalar was really cool. It was not a perfect game by any means, but I'm giving it an A because it feels really solid. It's such a solid game. At the end of the game felt lazy to me. It felt like they were hitting the end of their stride, like, okay, all right, we got nothing else to give the player. Just make them use a bunch of fight in a bunch of arenas against a bunch of enemies. It's fine, but the beginning of the game and the middle of the game really, really wowed me. I was very surprised by how much detail in each level there were, how the challenges worked. Just overall gameplay on the fly just was very fun, and all the new stuff they introduced to you was very fun. So this is a hidden gem, definitely, and I would recommend it to anyone who likes playing, action platformers. It's very fun. Hot Shots Golf 4. Hot Shots Golf 4 is finally the one that adds in extra characters, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, and it's still the good old golf game you remember with some new courses, some new characters, some old favorites from number 2 and number 1, and you also get new tournaments, and you also get new shot types. I don't know if they are in number 3, but I learned in this one about the super special shot types, the skull shots, and they are so much fun to perform. If you want to watch my video on the game itself, it'll tell you how they work, but they're very fun to do, and I got addicted to them right away. Otherwise, it's the same golf game, and it's going to get a B. Fun, just not perfect. All right, Wolverine's Revenge, a very weird third-person action game where you play as Wolverine and you are not invincible and stealth a lot. It's really, really weird. I mean, I understand, but Wolverine's whole thing is his healing factor in his claws, and when his healing factor is taken away from you quite often in the game, it kind of sucks. It's very weird. And this game is one of the first games I've played without checkpoints in levels that are difficult. Fucking difficult. No checkpoints. I shit you not. You play for an hour and you die, you start over an hour ago, man. Yes, you do know what you did before, and it's helpful, but jeez, man. Anyway, it's a fine game. It's fine, and it's actually going to get a C because the combat was interesting. I liked that you could do like 2 and 3 enemy like combos where you get them in a certain position around Wolverine. You could press a button and not instantly kill them all the time, but instantly do damage to them without you taking damage, because this game is hard. It's just a hard game. It's not just the objectives or the checkpoints. It's the fighting. You can get killed pretty quickly, and if you screw around too much, you're not going to make it through the level with enough health. Alone in the Dark gets a friggin' E. I'm saving it from an F because I still think it's an interesting game, but it was a game that was on the PS3 and Xbox 360 as well, and it was sorely dismantled for the PS2, man. So much was gutted from the original game, and someone told me the reason why the tutorial for driving a car was after I needed to drive a car was because you could apparently jump around between chapters in the other games. You could choose where you were at and play from there. I couldn't hear, so I didn't learn about cars until after I was forced to learn about them on my own, and then they gave me a tutorial. I'm not kidding. That's how it happened. And the tutorial was like 10 seconds, man. It was so easy and actually correct for a tutorial, and it's maddening that it was after I needed it. I didn't even need it after that again. Screw that. This game was just boring, man. It was so boring. It was so broken up. It was missing so much, and the parts of the game I played were unfun constantly. Too many mechanics for a game that didn't make you use those mechanics ever again. Next is going to be I Ninja. I Ninja was a very fun action platformer that surprised me. Someone recommended it and they said it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And yeah, it does. It's voiced by Billy West, the main character, who voices Fry and the Professor in Futurama and Zap Brannigan, lots of characters. He voices so many people. But he voices Ninja, who's literally just Ninja. And you go around several different worlds, and each world has different challenges where you gain points towards your next color of belt, literal belt that you get, all the way up to black belt. And as you get better and better, you can unlock more and more levels, fight bosses, and get some new abilities once you beat some of the levels. And the abilities are okay, they're fine. They're not like game changing in any way, I think, because most of it's just platforming, like slight puzzle solving and fighting of smaller enemies, but it's still really fun. It was a really good game, and I'm giving it a B. I think there are some aspects that were a little janky, and I didn't like how the challenges were all the same. Once you beat a stage of its like slightly unique part, it's then like, okay, next time you play the stage, collect 10 red coins. Just collect 10 red coins and beat the stage. Next time it's like, oh, you have a time limit. Beat the same stage in the time limit. It's not really fun to keep doing the same stage over and over with just one small change. So I wish. Mega Man Anniversary Collection, I actually beat much earlier than the video came out, and that's because the video was going to be long, because I had to play 8 separate Mega Man games and beat them, and yes, it was difficult. Mega Man is about running, jumping, shooting, and taking the abilities of bosses and using them on other bosses to show your supremacy. Honestly, that's what you do. You find the weakness of other bosses with other bosses' weapons, and you show them who's the boss. You're the real boss of Mega Man, dude, seriously. So you go through stages that are punishingly difficult and try and get to the end. Now, in this, because it's a console version of an old NES game, there are saves everywhere. You can save whenever you want, right in the middle of gameplay, I think. It's like an emulator. I mean, it's emulating Mega Man. So it's much easier to play the game. Although I don't play with any kind of save states, really. I only play with the regular, normal auto saves. So instead of putting in a password like you used to on the NES, I just restart from a save. But, man, it was fun, but frustrating, dude. Mega Man is hard, and having to play them, knowing you're gonna play ones that you're gonna have some issues with, it's tough, man. It is still really fun, and I recommend it because Mega Man's a fun game. So this one gets a B. Alright, the next game is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, and that game is another 3D action platformer. Very fun. I'm only going to give it a B, though, because there are a lot of janky mechanics in the game and the way that some of the robots and challenges work. Some of them are just, you can tell they didn't really test them before they put them in the game, and it's just not fun. But the game is very much like a Mario 64 type game. You go into a stage, there are several golden spatulas for different challenges around the area, and you complete them in whatever order you want to complete them in. You can go to new areas once you collect enough golden spatulas, and you unlock bosses to fight that are robot versions of all the characters. It's a cute little story. I mean, it's no different than any other time Plankton does something bad. It's the same. He makes some robots and they go haywire. You can do some cool little challenges around the game, collect all the golden spatulas, and they even have a new rehydrated version that my son played, and that's why I know the game so well. But it does not get a better score because of that, because I'm forced to play this game all the time. But, you know, it's still a fun game. It's absolutely worth getting and playing. It's super fun. The next game is not 187 Ride or Die, it's 187. Now when I made the video I said 187 because I just was on autopilot. I know 187 is the code in California that police use for murder, I think it is. I've heard of this before. It's not the first time I've heard it. Like I heard it before this, I even heard about this game. But I said 187 and someone was pissed. Okay, 187. 187 Ride or Die is still a shite game. It's fine on the level that it's a game where you drive cars and shoot out the windows at people, and that's it. You just drive cars and shoot guns out the window by picking them up off of the road, and you do different races and a couple different things that aren't races. The problem is it's just the same thing over and over. You do so many races and it's just ridiculous. Like it's the same thing. Race some cars, shoot some people. Race some cars, shoot some people. You have to hold the fire button down the entire time because you need to shoot people. You need to kill them because it makes the game easier. It's just much easier. You can race everything, but by God, it's so much easier to just shoot people. And sadly, the game's last boss was just purposefully too difficult. I don't know why they made it like that, but he has a rocket launcher and can kill you in one hit. So once you finally get all the way to him through all of the other part of the mission, if you die right away, you got to do the whole mission over. It took like 2 hours to do. Otherwise, the graphics are cool. The story is shite. I don't know. It's really not that great of a game. I'm giving it a D because it was still a little bit fun, but otherwise, no. Next game is KO the Kangaroo 2, and number 1 came out on Dreamcast, honestly, which is interesting. It's a very short, more kid-friendly platformer, and it's fine. The whole idea of the game is to collect 3,000 ducats to get on the ship to save all your animal friends from the hunter from the first game. And that's it. Once you get 3,000 ducats, you don't have to do anything else. There's no challenges you must do, and the last parts of the game give you 1,000 ducats each. So your only requirement is to collect 1,000 ducats before then, and then just never collect it again if you don't want. Now, there are some things to collect, stars that give you abilities and little gems that open bonus levels, but it's very short and kind of lacking. And it's fun, though, for a kid's game, and just like as a sit down one afternoon and beat game, you know? So it gets a C. Next game is Deus Ex, and I believe this would be an S if it were not for how low the FPS gets in parts of the game that are important to have FPS in normal numbers. This game is so good. This game is like, it would get a 9.9 for me. It would just be the FPS drops and the fact that I wish the keyboard and mouse worked a little better. I want it to be an S. I really want it to be an S because I like this so much. But I think because of the FPS drops in extreme areas, it's too much, man. Like, that is the only problem, but it is a problem when I'm trying to like shoot people. So it makes it an issue. I do wish the keyboard and mouse were labeled a little better because it's much, much better to play with the keyboard and mouse. Otherwise, Deus Ex is a game about conspiracy theories and it's an immersive sim, so you can pick up tons of items. There are tons of options. There's 3 game endings that are really, really freaking cool. Fighting people is fun. Don't fight people. Don't fight anyone. Sneak around. Talk to people. Whatever you want to do, however you want to complete the game, you can complete it that way. And it's on the PS2. I can't believe it. It's super good. I can't give it enough praise. But for the PS2 version, FPS drop is harsh, man. It's so harsh. It's too harsh. Also, there's a little too much all over the level for me at this point to have like sat down to understand when you're getting game lore. If I was playing this for a couple months and like reading everything and taking it all in, I would have had a better time with the story. But it was so small, it was just another thing on top of the FPS drop, I guess. Taking it down from an S, I don't know. Next game is Devil May Cry 1, the game that started it all. Great game, fantastic game, just shy of perfect. I think the combat's a little stiff at points. The story is nothing to, talk about. It's fine. He's a badass and he wants to avenge his parents' death, his mom's death, his brother's death, although he fights his brother. And there's an evil, demon Mundus who's trying to take over stuff. And the woman who gets you into all this is actually, stabs you behind your back. So otherwise, the game itself is super fun. It's the game that came off of Resident Evil 4 when they thought, the combat's too much different, let's make it a new game. And it was great. It's still super fun. I love Devil May Cry. It's just a fun time. Okay, next game is DMC2, and this game is getting a D. It is not a bad game. It is just a dull game. I don't know why they made it so that the camera sucked. I don't know why they made it so that your guns were super strong. I don't understand why they just didn't care about what you were fighting. You fight an infested tank. I don't care about an infested tank. Where are the cool bosses from the first game, man? They gave you an extra character to play as, and I played through Lucia's gameplay, but it was just as friggin' boring. Although she did have grenades and grenades that were really cool or something. I don't know. She had something cool that worked, and I liked that, but that was about it. It gets a D simply because it still was kind of cool playing through, like it just saved it. Otherwise, Devil May Cry 3 is sadly not getting an S. It is getting an A. It's like a 9.8. And I think that's because I still wish there were some different ways the combos worked. I like that you delay your presses for combos and press different X presses. It's the delaying. I have problems with the delaying. I wish it was several buttons you were pressing between and then even like a delay every so often, but it's just too much like delay, delay. I just don't like it. I want to be active. I want to press buttons. And maybe that's a me thing. Absolutely understand. Some people won't like that, but I need it to be a little bit different for me to really. Otherwise, the game is fantastic. The fighting is super fun. All the different weapons and the styles you can use are really fun. It's enjoyable and it's worth playing. It will probably be an S tier for most other people. So there you go. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, going right on to A. It's a very fun action platformer, although the action's a little bit less than Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter. Much more about sneaking and puzzle solving, although the sneaking isn't nearly as important. You do hit stuff, but your health is very low, so you've got to be a little bit careful when playing. So it's all about like sneaking around and finding out where to go and moving forward. I mean, it's not a game where you go collect specific objects to get further in the game other than keys. You just need to collect 7 keys, 1 from each stage. So it's much less a collectathon in that area than the other games where you had an open area and you collected stuff to move forward. This is all much more about just collecting a couple keys to unlock the boss to fight him, which is, it's fine. It's a little different. Otherwise, it's a really fun game. The story is cute. I like the style, the art style for the comics and just the comic kind of like cel-shaded style of the game anyway. It's really fun. The platforming was fun. I did have a little issue with the platforming sometimes, but that was resolved pretty quickly. I think it was just a me problem or a controller problem. Who knows? A tier. Next game is Ace Combat 4. Ace Combat 4 was an interesting game because I never thought I'd like a game where I was flying a jet. And when I was younger, this came in a bundle of games with my PS2, and I eventually played it and found it was a lot of fun. It's a very, very arcadey version of flying around a jet to fight people. And it's fine. It's really fun. And I like that there's, you know, new planes to get and like a couple different flavors for the levels, but for me it's too samey. Like, it's short, it's samey. It's very fun though. I wish there was like more to do or harder challenges. Otherwise the game was very simple. The last stage was kind of cool, but I wanted more out of it because it was fun. The mechanics were fun. It just didn't have enough for me. Next game is State of Emergency, and this game was supposed to be the GTA, like, not killer, but like, you know, the next GTA, and it was not. Instead, it was a crowd simulator where it showed off the ability to have a crowd, a big crowd of all NPCs that you can interact with, doing things, going places. You can shoot and attack them, and you can run into them, and that's cool and all, but that's all the game is. It is then just 3 large areas with some random dude giving you a random quest that most likely involves you killing people or just blowing something up. And you do it over and over and over, and there's so many missions. Some of them take all of about 30 seconds, but then you do another one that's 30 seconds, and then another one that's 30 seconds, and it's like, dude, it's just the same thing over and over. There's nothing new, and it's so frequent. There's no break. All you do is do this crap. And then there is another mode called Chaos Mode that seems more fun, but you don't get credits playing it, where you create as much chaos in that level as you can. That sounds more fun. At least I get to choose what I'm doing. No, instead I have to play missions that are literally broken on my game until I reset the game and try again and find out that there is a mission objective that a person is dying before I am able to reach him. I have to go somewhere, activate it, and come back and save him. As I go to activate it and I come back, he dies before I'm even able to see him. So I'm never able to get to him, and that's when I have to reset the game and find that the game is just, I don't know what it's doing. I don't know. For a while, it was bugged for so long. And the missions themselves are just, aiming and shooting at people is terrible. This game is just bullcrap, man. The last missions were fun, because it was you using rocket launchers and miniguns to blow up swaths of enemies. I was like, oh yeah, this is what it should have been. Why isn't it this all the way through? No, it's escort this one guy through town and fight like 3 people. So weird. Hi everyone, this is the future version of PS2 or Die, here to say that the next game was supposed to be James Bond Agent Under Fire. However, a complete big misunderstanding with how the controls worked in the game made me not like it because I didn't know I could change the controls. So I'm going to come back and play this game later, and instead, here I'm just going to insert in a different game, which would be Road Trip Adventure. a game where you play as a car trying to become the next car president by winning races all over the world. And before you do that, you must travel the countryside to find each of the villages that host the races. You find some teammates, you beat all of your license requirements, and then you finish the Grand Prix with enough points to challenge the president for one last race, and then you win. And then you're car president. I'm putting this game in the C tier. As fun as it is, there are a lot of issues with it, and things that could have really been cleaned up. Zone of the Enders, an interesting, short little mecha game where you ride in a robot and you beat things up. The game's story is fine, I guess. It ends kind of abruptly, and I wish there was a little bit more to it. And it was a little over dramatic in parts, but sometimes it needed to be. I mean, a kid watches his friends die, I suppose, so it can be. I think the big thing for me is that it was very short. The combat was kind of fun, but it just, some of the mission objectives were not clear enough about what you needed to do. And even one of them, I came inches from the objective and it didn't activate, and I left and spent another hour looking, well, maybe half an hour, until someone finally said, hey, go back to that stage, it's right there. I'm like, oh my god, I'm right on top of it. Didn't activate. It was still fun, but I do wish it was a little more put together, and I hear the second one is. This is more like a prototype for it, so I'm excited to play the second one. So we get to beat. Onimusha is a kind of Devil May Cry inspired looking game, and it plays more like Resident Evil and Devil May Cry combined, right? Like it's much more of a right in between, where instead of using guns, you use your sword, and you have to make good decisions in combat because enemies do fight in certain predictable patterns. You've got to block things, you've got to strafe left and right around them to hit them. You have some magic abilities you can use, and it's still this Resident Evil feel, fixed camera angles and finding objects to find your way through levels. But you get to also level up your different weapons, and that's really cool. You get to level up, as well as a kind of like dungeon that you go through where you go through several different floors, and at the end you get a super sword that makes the game really a lot easier. Otherwise, it's a really, really solid game. It gets probably more like a 9 for me, like in the A tier, like a lower end A tier. I think that there is a lot of cleaning up of the combat, and just the fact that it was so short, it was kind of fun. And the puzzles they're fine. It was really just like brute force on a couple of them, and one of them I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, shuffling the little squares with different pictures on them until you make the pictures. I'm not good at that one, so like I was struggling with it. Not that that takes it down that much, but the puzzles need to maybe not be as silly puzzly. It needs to just be, there was one puzzle that was fine, but the rest of them were eh. All right, next one is Triggerman. Triggerman is an F. Oh my god, it's a terrible, like 3-hour third-person shooting type game. It was just terrible. Your character's movement was terrible. The story was terrible. It was all given to you through small bits of dialogue at the beginning of a stage and maybe in the middle. There was some sneaking parts where you snuck past people. You couldn't even kill them. It was cops. You're apparently not allowed to shoot cops to get out of a place, so you need to sneak around them. And I don't understand what you're supposed to do. So I was firing my gun to lure them away, and I had to lure them away multiple times until their patterns through whatever building I was in disrupted enough for me to sneak past them. And it's not fun. It's like perfect. You have to be perfect on those sneaking sections. My god, the last one was terrible, dude. You have to sneak behind someone turning in a circle, and you must figure out where their cone of vision is with no indicator of a cone of vision. And the shooting is terrible. The boss was terrible. The bosses were terrible. The boss I killed because they gave me a rocket launcher. Killed her in 2 shots. Then the boss before her was impossible because he was kind of like bugged in the back of this building with too many dudes who can kill you in seconds. My god, that game is bad. Whew. All right, next game is Crazy Taxi, and people are going to not like this, but it is getting a D. It's just drive a taxi and pick people up and drop them off. It wasn't that fun. I don't know, man. That's it. There's nothing else. There's some challenges you can do, and there's some other modes you can play, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it was just so, like, there's nothing to it. It's just, I don't know. I didn't really like it. I'm sorry. You can be mad. All right, the next game, and clearly better than Crazy Taxi, is Strawberry Shortcake, Sweetest Dreams. And I don't like this game as a kid's game because it's a little confusing on some of the things it wants you to do in some areas. And it's not because it's hard to understand. It's because you need to go forward past an objective or past an exit and then come back. And as a child's game, I don't think doing that is helpful. Like, kids need to be able to move forward so that they can parse the information out and then eventually give it to them as like turn. I had a lot of problems with that when I was younger as well. Like, and games were very unforgiving back then. So if you needed to do that, it was hard. And yes, I learned how to be good at games, but I think, you know, my first game was Super Mario Brothers. You don't have to go backwards. So I first learned to always go forward so that you were progressing. It helped, you know, conceptualize what you're doing in a game. So coming backwards in a game is really weird. And you come back several times, and it's just an unfun game. You get a couple abilities as Strawberry Shortcake. You're saving your friend's dreams or something. I don't know. It's bullcrap. All right, next game is SpongeBob SquarePants Movie. And this one is literally a reskin of Bikini Bottom and made to follow the movie. And that's fine because they can get another SpongeBob game out. You know, it was fun. I don't know. It just felt boring. It was the same game, but following the movie. And it felt like they had to really stretch some spots to get you to have gameplay in it. And the driving was just, the challenges there were weird. You know, fighting was fine, leveling up was fine, you get manly points to level up. It gets a C. It's still a fun game, it's just, you know, it's fine. And I just realized game number 100 is Maximo, and it's the game. I played that game in Japanese because I thought it was cheaper, but I was mistaken. It was a different game I was thinking of that was cheaper in Japanese. So I bought it in Japanese and played it, and it was really easy to play. And it's a really weird game. It's so weird. So the very first games this is coming off of are Ghosts and Goblins and Goblins and Ghouls, and it's a very hard game where he plays a guy who, when he gets hit, his armor falls off and he has his boxers. You get like 2 hits and that's it. It's very hard. It's the one game where you get to the end and you have to start over to beat it. You have to start over when you get to the end and play it again, because that's just what they wanted to do. They wanted to screw you over on the NES. This game is a lot different. You beat the game when you beat the game. It is bizarre. You have a hub area and you go through levels and you just get through each level until you get to the boss. Now, you have abilities you can pick up off of the ground and keep in your inventory. Every time you get through levels and get stronger, you get an extra slot that is a permanent slot. You have more abilities than permanent slots, so you must select what abilities you want. Anytime you die, you drop everything that's not in a permanent slot. But anything that's not in a permanent slot still gives you the bonus, so you have an incentive to not die. And it's hard, because this game is hard. It's hard. The combat's difficult. Jumping a platforming is kind of difficult. It's third person, but man, it's hard. Your health is better in this game. You have more than 2 health, but it's still, you can get wrecked so easy, and falling and dying instantly feels pretty bad sometimes when you've gotten through a level so far and you must start from almost the beginning. There are some spots where you can actually get a checkpoint, but you know, the checkpoint doesn't tell you must do a sword slam into the checkpoint to get it. So for a while, I didn't have any checkpoints. The big thing about this is the bosses are very cartoony and very obvious, and they're fine. They're fine bosses. But the last boss is the weirdest last boss I've ever fought, because it comes out of nowhere. It completely changes the style of the game. Now, the game is a little bit gritty, you know, like medieval style, and sure, it has a little bit of like horrorness to it. But this last boss, what if the game was like this the whole time? So the last boss, instead of being cartoony and just like fighting a guy and like hitting him a couple phases, you are in a large castle area, like this like big throne room, and it is pitch black, and the only time you see is when thunder and lightning crack outside. The lightning lights up the room for seconds, and you're being hunted by an enormous alien looking monster. And so you just wait with your shield up as your heart's beating and you can hear it. There's no music, just a heartbeat. And the thunder cracks and you see a flash of lightning and you see her like halfway across the arena and you're like, oh God, where is she? And then she comes up and hits you and you have to decide, is this attack one I can hit her, or do I just tank it with my shield? It's not a complex fight, but it is so cool. It's just cool. So Weird. It's a fun game, though. It gets a B because it's still really fun. It's difficult, though, and I think there's a lot of stuff they can work on. I think the next Maximo number 2 on here will probably might be higher because I liked this one. Just not A tier or S tier, not perfect. So, all right, that is 100 games tier listed on the PS2. I've beaten all of these games. I've played all of them. I've taken them out to dinner, given them kisses, you know, went on some dates, and I really like this list. I can't believe I just spent almost 3 hours doing this list. This is the time the video is going to end, so thank you everyone for watching this video. I appreciate it. If you don't agree with my spots, then please discuss it in the comments. I understand, absolutely. But these are my positions based on the reasons I said, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I will be doing another one of these in another 100 games. I'll have a separate tier list, and I will save this tier list and make sure everyone else can take a look at it and either do it themselves or whatever. You know, it'll be on my Discord. So if you'd like to join the Discord, look down in the description. You can join it there. Anyway, thank you to all the supporters. Thank you to any membership. Anyone who has memberships on Twitch, Patreon, or YouTube, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's watched this all the way through. I appreciate it if you've watched this all the way through. It's a fun tier list to do. All these games were fun, but some of them just weren't good. And I'll be back for my regular videos soon. Later.